everyone, and welcome to the Gallop Out for our special Derby and Oaks edition. I'm joined by my co-hosts Jackson and Kaylee. How are you guys doing today?
Really good. Excited for this week.
Oh yeah, we have. I know this is the best week in racing. We're kicking off everything. It's going to catapult us into the Triple Crown. Big show today. We have, I believe it's 6 guests that are going to be joining us for basically every 30 minutes as we keep it rolling. We're going to talk Derby and Oaks strategy, how to approach it. Obviously, 20-horse field in the Derby can be a bit of a headache to handicap. So, if you don't have a strong opinion, we're here to help you figure out how to approach that race. And our first guest that's going to join us to help us through it is none other than Andy Serling. Andy, welcome back. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad to hear you're gainfully employed since last time I was working with you.
I know. Isn't that great how life changes?
The internet can fool people. It's really impressive.
It always can. I'll throw the past performances up on the screen here for us as we'll talk Kentucky Oaks first. Again, we're not giving picks or anything like that. We're just going to kind of go over strategy, go over who we think the kind of contenders and pretenders are. So we'll kind of go through the field a little bit. I guess we got to start with the rail horse in early on for Saffie Joseph. Andy, we'll start with you. Do you think, 30-1 on the morning line, but do you think this horse has any shot or at least going to meddle the pace at all?
No, I don't think she's part of the pace at all. And I think that might benefit her a little bit. I give her a little extra credit because my friend David Aragona is a fan of hers. So I think is a long shot. I could see throwing her in somewhere. I do prefer the horse that beat her last time, who I think would benefit from more pace. But, I do think that she's a little better than she looks. She's improving. And no, I think she's a horse that's going to fall back in this race, and that might benefit her.
Definitely, yeah. The horse you mentioned that beat her last time was the number 6, Ballerina d'Oro, a horse that I think everybody on here is kind of unsure of what to do about. At least I know I am. Kaylee, what are your thoughts on this horse? You're getting, 10-1 on the morning line, just beat early on by a head last time out in the Gazelle, but did not have a whole lot of pace.
Yeah, I did not like her last race whatsoever, but the more I looked at it, she was sitting closer than she had ever before, or especially way closer than she did in the Demoiselle, which was the race that I really liked from her. She had really no pace to run into in the Gazelle. So, she was having a hard time switching her lead towards the end of the race, and she looked pretty tired, but that made a lot of sense to me the more I looked at the race, considering she had, no pace to run into whatsoever. I see her as one that's pretty likely to pick up pieces and a logical option to use in tries and supers.
Definitely logic. Yeah, definitely a logical use here. Andy, I think the 2 Simply Joking, 7 Lucara, and the 8 5G are the primary pace players. Was there anybody else you saw that could be, up on the pace? And do you think that's going to, set up for a deep closer or someone coming from just off of it?
Well, I don't know. That's the $1 million question, right? I think the pace will be honest here. And while I respect Simply Joking, I kind of have trouble seeing her winning this race under the gun unless for some reason nobody wants to go. I think Quiet Side's also going to be forward in here. She's probably not as fast as the others, but she's going to have to go a little bit. I don't particularly like 5G, though. She can be forward. And look, she's run some good races. And Lucara has too. I'm not a particular fan of Lucara, and I think at a relatively short price, she's a bad gamble. But I don't know. She's fooled me before. I just don't see her really being good enough in here. And I think this rates to be a stronger pace than last time. And also, she got the lead last time because one speed got left and other guys didn't go. So while she didn't exactly crawl on the front end, she was helped by surprising tactics from others. And I just think in the Kentucky Oaks, people are going to be a little more aggressive. I don't think they're going to be, fooling around at the start. So I think the pace is going to be pretty quick. All those horses have credentials. I'm just not particularly in love with them.
I totally understand what you're saying. Jackson, a horse that has all the credentials coming into this race, is the morning line favorite, Good Cheer. I know this is your strongest opinion in the race, so to speak, but do you think the pace is just going to set up right for her? And she's done nothing wrong, clearly.
Yeah, the pace kind of has to set up for her. Simply Joking is one way to go. Lucara's 3 fastest races by far. When she makes the lead, they have to go. There's their only way they're going to win. Anna's Promise is quick. Quiet Side from that post kind of needs to at least get forward somewhat. There's 14 horses in this race. A lot of them have speed. It's going to be hot enough, I think, for her. She checks every box for me in this race. Only issue is the speed figure edge. She doesn't really have one. Again, I'm kind of banking on the fact that a couple of guys I trust kind of said that fairgrounds track that day was inside favoring, and she was parked 4 wide the entire way around there, and so hoping that's the case here, and I kind of expect her to take another step forward in this spot. So I'm going to be on good cheer. 6-5 is a little low though. I don't know if I can better to one. I mean, at least probably 9 to 5, 2 to 1.
Yeah, I have her as an A right now as well. Andy, do you think the speed figure edge is going to be cause her to be a bad bet in here, seeing as she doesn't really tower over the field necessarily? Or do you think there's also a plausible step up come Kentucky Oaks?
Well, I think that's kind of a problematic question, because where is that step up? She didn't really get that much faster from 2 to 3, and she hasn't gotten that much faster. She's probably the horse to beat in here. Obviously, she's been consistent and run well, but this is a big test for her, and I don't know what price she's going to be. If she's 2 to 1, I wouldn't have any argument anybody did better. I wouldn't be one of them, but I wouldn't argue against them. And if she's 6 to 5, I think you're supposed to bet against her. It's like anything, price, and her credentials are very good for this race, but they're not overwhelming.
Agreed. Kaylie, I want to go out to you because I know per your Naira Bets videos, Quiet Side is your pick in the Kentucky Oaks and the horse that you're most looking forward to see run. What's the kind of pace scenario or the trip that you envision Quiet Side getting?
She's breaking from the outside, so I expect her to be pretty forwardly placed, which she has been, at least in her last 2 starts. She was very forwardly placed. I think that she can sit a similar trip in the Oaks. I think that she can sit right off of those 2 or 3 speed horses that we just talked about, 5G, Lacara, and Simply Joking as well. But I think that you guys really covered it about good cheer. She doesn't really have any particular edge that warrants a price of 6 to 5 on her, in my opinion, or at least a price that I'm not willing to take that price on her. I think that she's obviously pretty critical to have on pick 5 tickets. If you're trying to stay alive, she very much is the horse to beat, but I prefer Quiet Side in here. I think that she took a big step up last time out in the fantasy. I think that she just continues to improve. She's been working really well. And I honestly think that there's a better chance that she might take a significant jump up than than Good Cheer. So I landed on Quiet Side here, especially 8 to 1 on the morning line. She's probably going to be your second choice, or pretty even to Lacara, in my opinion. And she's just a pretty good play, I think, on top at that price. So
I think so too. At 8 to 1, I mean, she's right there on the speed figures and provides much better value. So I like that. That's Quiet Side. Andy, I know this is a hypothetical-ish question, but obviously anybody that looks at the weather report sees that it's supposed to rain. Although the first 2 days at Churchill have been fast and firm, minus a brief shower. If this track were to get sloppy, do you think that is going to move a certain horse up or move others down? At least in your eyes?
Well, that's probably a great question that I should probably think about at some point. And I think at about 4:30 on Friday, if the track is sloppy, I'll probably start giving it some thought. Otherwise, I don't know. I think you really get yourself in trouble when you start worrying about wet tracks. I mean, the one thing I'd say is if you like horses at prices, why would you ever be talked off a horse because it's a wet track? It's not going to play favorites for fast tracks and for speed, for long shots and short prices. So I don't know. I mean, I know Good Cheer has that big win, a sloppy seal track at 3 to 5, but I don't know. I feel that stuff is kind of overrated. And, every year we spend the week hearing it's going to rain on Derby Day and Oaks Day. And sometimes it does, and usually it doesn't. So I don't know. I'll worry about it when it happens. I know it's not great, but
no, I just totally get it. If it's sloppy at 4:30, yeah, then you start to kind of take it into account. Yeah. But
I think people spend way too much time thinking about how their horses are going to handle wet tracks, and the answer is they usually do. Right. And there's occasionally horses that are really bad at wet tracks. You know what usually happens? They scratch. So
very true.
That's a very fair point. Jackson, I'll throw it out to you. A horse that I think moves up on a wet surface, if it were to be that way, is the horse we're looking at, the number 13, Bless the Broken. What do you think about that? Fast track, obviously, she's been okay, but I mean, her best effort has come over the slop. Do you think I'm reading too much into it, or do you think that would be a logical kind of landing spot?
No, I mean, I'm never going to talk to anyone off of a 30-1 shot that's coming off of a win, closing into a slow pace. So, I mean, I could see her picking up some pieces here if they go really fast, and I get the feeling they are going to go pretty fast. I think her ceiling's probably super fact up maybe in the try, but I don't hate this horse.
Yeah. All right. Well,
to add to your point, like yesterday, everyone's talking about the speed bias racetrack at Churchill Downs. I mean, you have 3 days of races in between now and the Friday and the Derby. Just wait till Friday and see how it's playing on Friday. You have 12 races before the Oaks that happens. Like it was ridiculous. I can't.
There might be some rain between now and then too. So.
Yeah, there always could be. There could be 3 different rainstorms that come by. It could be fast and firm by who knows.
Somebody told me today on Twitter that they liked. Or they thought my main squeeze was better because she was wide against the gold rail at Keeneland. So I looked it up, and every race horses were doing well that were making outside moves. So I don't know.
Oh, classic. So, yeah. I guess the point of this entire conversation is don't focus on the weather until it's time for the race, pretty much, because the track's going to play different every day. Today it played rather fair. Yesterday, Jackson, you mentioned the speed bias. So who knows what tomorrow is going to bring. But let's go ahead and move on to the Kentucky Derby, because that is obviously the main race that comes up this weekend for the 3-year-old boys, of course. Let me get the past performances up here once I find them. All right. Should be up on the screen. There we go. All right. Kentucky Derby. Obviously, we're going 1.25 miles on the dirt. I want to start the conversation off with the return of Bob Baffert back at Churchill Downs. His 2 horses both like to be forward. They're drawn 1 and 4. Jackson, I'll go to you first because I saw you crack a smile. What do you think the tactics are going to be with them both kind of, needing the lead, needing the lead or needing to be forward to be most effective?
I mean, the tactics are they have to go. I think from this post, his symbol has no other option. I still think they might scratch him. I mean, run 2 weeks later in the Preakness where you'll be 5-2 and be against a way softer field and actually have a shot in there. I don't know. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. If he does run, they have to send. I don't really view him as having any kind of chance in this race, to be honest.
Yeah, I can certainly agree. I know we have him in our little fantasy derby draft, but the more and more I kind of look at his works and look at how he's doing, I hope he scratches from the rail too.
I think that's where he can win the Derby in fantasy land. Fantasy league.
And I want to ask you. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'd say I'm hearing he could scratch too. So,
I want to ask you. So obviously, there's 20 horses in this race. It can be, a puzzle or a nightmare to kind of handicap and try and find your strongest opinion. When you approach it from a wagering perspective, are you looking for a win bet? Do you kind of play the exotic wagers like the tries and supers? How do you kind of approach it from a betting perspective?
Given how incredibly my Derby picks have sucked over the years, I mean. I'm actually a career winner. I made a lot of money in the Derby in 1994, and I'm holding on to it. But I don't bet a lot in the Derby. I find it to be an extraordinarily difficult race. And it's like, people in the public, it's like the craziness with Andy Beyer. He sucks because he never picks the Derby winner. Now, he may suck for a number of reasons. That's not one of them. He actually doesn't suck. But, you're talking about, yes, we all want to find the Derby winner. There's a sort of question of pride, right? You feel like, I made it through, even if you're on second, I made it through another year without wholly embarrassing myself in the Derby. It is a very tough race to win, and it's a very tough race to win betting. But there is great opportunity. So, I mean, there's a horse that I think is interesting in here at a big price that I'd like to get into the exact or try. So maybe I'll gamble around a little bit more. But I'll tell you the truth, I don't feel as though I'm supposed to lose or bet a lot more money in the Derby than some other race, a race where I frankly think it's very, very hard. And the answer is you get paid if you win. Except I think this year you've got a favorite that's going to be very hard to keep out of the top 2 or 3 in journalism. So I'm not sure where that great edge is unless he somehow goes up at 7-2. Right.
You mentioned something in there, though, that this is, it's pretty much any other race. You don't need to treat it as if it's some, you need to bet 3 times your normal amount in this race just to feel kind of effective. Kaylie, I'm curious, what's your kind of approach to the Derby? Obviously, we know your top pick and who you're rooting for here. Is it just going to be as simple as a win bet, or are you also going to kind of dive into the exotics a tad?
I honestly am more excited to bet the Oaks than the Derby. I'm really excited to do some supers and tries in the Oaks, but I ultimately am going to end up in the Derby too. I mean, obviously I have my top pick, Sovereignty. I'm going to bet him to win. Anything after that, I mean, I'm probably going to play around with some bombs and some supers and have journalism on most of my tickets as well, is sort of how I'm approaching it.
I like it. Jackson, I know you've heard me say this probably time and time again. My approach to the Derby this year is I'm just going to key journalism underneath in different spots in the super, just because I think he is clearly the best horse in the race, but the best horse doesn't always win. What's your approach going to be as we approach Saturday?
I mean, my approach to the Derby is always just bet your opinions. But to be honest, this year, my strong opinions, I don't really know how I'm supposed to bet them. Journalism going back and forth on. I think Sandman is an awful bet at 5-1. And really has no chance to win this thing. I don't know. I think Chunk of Gold is kind of the interesting bomb horse that I might try to sneak in the exotics, but it's not the strongest opinion I ever have. So don't know how crazy I'm going to go for this year's Derby, but definitely going to be watching and be betting the undercard for sure, because I think I have my better opinions are on the undercard.
Yeah, the undercard on Saturday is one of the toughest cards I've ever personally looked at in recent memory. Just ultra competitive. Friday looks a tad chalky maybe, but Saturday certainly looks like there's some deep competition in those fields.
Yeah, I was talking this morning with Mikey, and I was telling him this exact same thing. He's like, well, maybe you should just bet Chunk of Gold the show, and hope you get 4 or 5-1 on the show, and that'll be your only bet for the Derby. It's not the worst idea I've ever heard.
That's
it's
not
up
the worst.
there. It's up there, but it's not the worst idea.
I don't know what else to do. I really don't love anything this year. I thought it was very difficult.
You know, at the end of the day, if you don't love anything and it is just another horse race, you can just watch and, appreciate it. And you don't have to. You can make all your money on the undercard and just watch it for fun. And you can play your little show bet on Chunk of Gold and just, root for that, because why not?
I think one of the things that's probably beneficial for people to do when they handicap this race is make themselves a list, basically, where they have very forward horses that are way out the back, and then figure out sort of who's in the middle and where they are. Because I know Orr won a huge meltdown, and maybe we're going to get another meltdown like that, but it's probably better to be focusing on horses that you think are talented, that are more mid-pack somewhere in this race. And that's one of the reasons the journalism becomes so dangerous in this race. He doesn't feel like a horse that can be a pace victim. Somebody says, what if, people making up scenarios, Citizen Bull walks around the racetrack. I said, in journalism would be 3 or 4 lengths behind him, and he would still beat him. So I think you want to find things, a horse like Lux or Cafe, who I think could be dangerous in here. I don't like to jump on the Japanese bandwagon, but he's not going to be that short a price. I don't think he's going to be that far out. Horses like Grande are not going to be that far out of it. And even Chunk of Gold, who you mentioned, he's not going to be maybe as close as last time, but he's not a deep closer, more like a horse like Publisher or Tistastic or Sovereignty or Sandman. So I think those horses become a little bit sexier in this race because of their positioning. You may or may not like them, but I think it's beneficial in figuring out how the race is going to be run. Where do you see these different horses, and does the sort of category they're in up their chances or maybe mitigate their chances?
Yeah, that's excellent insight. And Andy, I know you have your show coming out tomorrow where you're going to give your Derby picks. I'll look for the opposite question here. Are there any horses to you in this Derby that are just absolute tosses that will be nowhere on any of your tickets?
Well, as always, I find myself agreeing with Jackson quite a bit. I think Sandman is utter fool's gold in this race. I don't like him at all. I think if you want a deep closer, the horse that Kaylie likes in Sovereignty is certainly a more likely horse. I don't understand wanting horses like Publisher. I'm not going to really want a Tistastic. I mean, listen, I'm also about 20-1 shots, but the Derby 20-1 isn't really that big a price. So listen, and everything depends what price they are. If Publisher were at 45-1 and somebody wanted to use them, don't listen to me. And if you like these horses, bet them. I'm going to be wrong about this race far more often than right. But I think the deeper closers like that, especially a Tistastic and a Publisher that's so benefited from the dynamics of their last race, to me, they're just terrible gambles, because someone can say, well, they're going to get a fast pace again in this race, and they very well might, but there are better horses in this race than there were in their last races, particularly in journalism. And I don't want to keep going back to the favorite, but I don't know what the chink in this horse's armor is going into this race. He may not win, but to me, he's clearly the horse to beat in here, and he's not going to be 8-5.
No, he is going to be in that, maybe 3-1 to 5-2 range. I would hope maybe even up to 7-2. Horse we haven't talked about yet that I have a pretty strong opinion about is the number 9 Burnham Square. Is a decent price around 12 to 1. I think he's floated up in the current betting pool to something like 25 to 1, but I'm sure he'll drift back down. Do you think this horse is just going to be too far out of it? I really like the last race and how he was able to close into it. But he can kind of be mid-pack too far out of it. So I'm just trying to nail down where he's going to be when they turn for home.
I don't like him. I'd love to see Ian Wilkes win this race. Terrific guy. But I don't look that Bluegrass. I mean, the entire field was together at the wire. River Thames got beaten 3/4 of a length. Would you like him in here?
I would not like him in here.
He sort of belongs more in the group of closers to me that just might not be good enough to win. I'd bet him over Sandman.
Okay. Hey, I'll take that.
Sandman's like 16th in my whatever effecta. He's probably not going to be 16th, but he's not going to win.
I will say with, a guy like Jackson who doesn't typically, pick the chalk or pick the favorites. Same with you, Andy. Unless they're really deserving of it, it does kind of speak volumes that, coming back to journalism after everything really must speak to this horse's ability. And clearly he has a strong effort. Kaylie, do you have I know obviously you love Sovereignty in here, but as we continue on, are there any other long shots that you are kind of attracted to in the Derby field here?
American Promise, if he's able to break cleanly and get a good trip. I mean, I see the possibility of that happening. He's not as quick as the horses to his inside, but I think that he can sit, 4th or 5th. And if he has room to run, he could be pretty interesting. How I kind of started with this is I just immediately tossed out 10 horses that I know that I won't want. And then I kind of am left with another 10 that I'm going to try to form bets around. I know I'm super strong on Sovereignty to win. I'm probably going to use American Promise underneath him. I'm tossing both the Japanese horses. I'm not crazy about either of them. I know I'll have to have journalism there. I don't like Burnham Square at all. I think that he passed a whole bunch of tired horses in the Bluegrass, and he only beat East Avenue by a nose, and that horse went way too fast up front. Grande is really interesting. I don't think that you'll ever get 20 to 1 on him, but his Wood Memorial was really good, so he's one that I'll definitely want to use. And then looking towards the outside, there's really no one I want besides Sovereignty, and maybe I'll use Tistastic in a superfecta, but those are really the only horses that I'm pretty strong on.
I like it. 30 to 1 on American Promise. I'd never talk you off of that. Andy, I have one last question, and then our next guest has one for you. But to wrap it up, obviously on Derby Day, you have a plethora of special wagers going on. Are there any that you tend to gravitate towards or play, or does it all depend on if you have a strong opinion in one of those sequences that you can kind of build value around the rest of them?
Special wagers? I won't be playing any of them. In fact, I won't even be looking and finding out what they are. So I feel like Derby Day, I've gone 3 of the last 4 years, and I try to stay out of trouble in those races because they're hard, so I'll try to find a few horses that are okay prices that I think are a little bit interesting. I think that Built is going to be hard to beat in the Pat Day Mile. I'm going to use California Burrito and a little Gate to Wire. I think that Bookham Dano might be an interesting alternative in the Churchill Downs Stakes. So he's a horse that I'm kind of looking at. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's very easy for me. I'm going to root for my friend Seth Klarman's horses in those other races. He's my friend. They're big races, and I hope they do well. And I don't really need to bet on them a lot. These are races where I find I get in more trouble betting than not. My opinions are historically have been fairly mediocre on these days.
That's very fair.
Really good.
Yeah, I hope she does well. I hope Ian's going to be tough. Obviously, she's not going to be the 8 to 1. I'll hope for the best for randomized, but I realize that Torpedo Anna may have some questions still to answer, but she's still Torpedo Anna, and to sort of dismiss her as eminently beatable, it's the kind of thing you get in trouble with more often than not. I'm not saying, I think you're supposed to be looking to be against her, but I don't know how big a stand I want to take against her at this point. I don't know.
That's very fair. Actually, I lied. I have one more question for you as we're on the topic of Chad Brown horses. Spirit of St. Louis runs back. Obviously, that was your long shot play when you were on our Pegasus show. What are your thoughts about him this weekend?
I think he's very dangerous in there. I think you want the outside movers from the Munez, and he fits the bill. I got those PPs somewhere. He fits that bill very well. I think he has a huge chance in there. I think in that race, The horses I thought were most live were Integration. Well, just, he's just reliable to run fairly well in these races, I think, and drew well inside. Redistricting, who was a bit wide last time. I think that Spirit St. Louis ran better, but he'll be a bigger price. He's got to one day step it up. And I also thought Cameo Performance, if you're looking for a long shot in there, might be a little interesting for Brennan Walsh. She stepped up so much last time. I thought ran okay in there. A little pick up pieces, but a lot of it never really being inside where you wanted to be that day. So they were the ones I was looking at, and that's always a super fun race, the race before the Derby. I always like it. And, I think it doesn't, the worst idea, I'm going to keep it simple there. Some doubles, maybe Derby to, that is the race, right? That race is
race 11. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe some of that, a few doubles there or something for action. But like I said, I have a deep fear of getting buried on Derby day.
That's a very reasonable fear. It's a tough card.
It probably goes back to childhood somewhere. I just don't know when.
Depends on how much money you make on Oaks Day and the whole day leading up to the Derby for me. Definitely.
It's a long continuum of horse racing. I don't need to get in any more trouble on a Derby day.
No doubt about it. Andy, thanks so much. I do want to bring on our next guest because I know he has a question for you, but I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy Derby week to join us with your insight and who you like, throughout.
Am I waiting for this? Am I waiting for someone? Oh, Matt.
Yes, this guy right here, Matt Miller. He has a question for you that I know we all need to know the answer to.
So, Andy, good to see you. And it's funny, I am trying very much to get a reaction out of you with this question, although I suspect you and I have an identical reaction. What is going on with the betting on Final Jeopardy these days? It is worse than ever. I see your tweets.
It's funny that nobody catches on to it. You know what I mean? In other words, you would think people going on and they would have figured it out by now, but they haven't. I don't know. It's strange. I don't know. I think one of the things that's interesting about Jeopardy is the person who sort of changed the game for people and how they played was James Holzhauer. And he has an incredible gambler's mentality, right? And he went into it with a real gambler's mentality. And it helped that he's a super genius that knows the answer to every question. And that's a very important factor to success. But his ability to risk it up, without care and bet the daily doubles. The other day, there was late in the first round, the leader had 6,200. The second person had 3,200. No, some amount where if they bet it all, it wasn't even that much. It was like 3,000 change. They would have had more than the leader after the first round, which isn't that big a deal. And they bet 2,000 of their 3,200 daily double. What are you doing? What are you keeping the other 1,200 for? So I think that people lack a gambler's mentality, and then they get to Final Jeopardy. And sometimes people bet well, but frequently they just, and a lot of recent people that finished second, that should have won if they bet right, lost. But I always have to be able to figure out how people can't figure out the mentality. That's the one thing they can ask somebody going in, and they clearly
exactly. And these are some of the smartest people in the world. And I think the one that gets to me is the person that gets a double Jeopardy late and doesn't bet enough to overtake the leader. And you just
the leader made a stupid mistake yesterday where he either should have bet like $1 or he should have bet enough that he guaranteed himself more than twice the person in second. It was only like 4 questions. Instead, he needed to bet like 3,200 to do that. Instead, he bet 2,000. And it's like, it wasn't going to affect him if he missed it, if he bet 4,000. He was still going to have way more than the other person, still going to win if he got it right or, whatever. And it's like, but I don't know. I don't think a lot of them have the gambler's mentality and understand how to bet and stuff. And I think James Holzhauer did. And that's one of the reasons he's a legend in that game. He not only was brilliant, but he really understood the gambler's mentality. And it made a big difference for him, especially the amount of money he won.
Well, I'll put this out there as an idea to you, especially with my views on game theory and your ability to host and all that. My suggestion is we put together a 5-minute training video for Jeopardy contestants. I know they have a Jeopardy handbook on what they need to study for. And
I don't want to lecture Jeopardy contestants. They're all smarter than I am. I don't want to I hear you, but I'd rather do it on Twitter, and behave badly the way people behave towards me. It gives me an opportunity to behave like the jerk that people behave towards me. I get to do that to people on Jeopardy who have already accomplished so much more than I've ever accomplished. So I'm going to stick to that strategy. It's a quiet way of getting back at everybody.
Fair enough. Good to see you.
I love it. Andy, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the Derby, and I look forward to seeing your Derby and Oaks video tomorrow.
You too. Nice to see everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
All right. Obviously, that was Andy Serling. That was awesome. Always happy to be joined by him. And now we're joined by Matt Miller. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So I have two quick ones for Kaylie, actually. Number one is, I would swear I caught you on a show the other day wearing Ryan's glasses.
Oh, yeah. I had glasses I found in a purse, and they're falling apart. They're like half broken, so they just do not look right on my face.
And number two, I would say you are rapidly catching up to Andy B. and Cone in terms of what I'm going to call supportive behaviors when listening to someone else in an interview. So you and Matthew are doing some sort of something, and you sit there doing the best job of like, right? Andy does the same thing with the microphone and the paddock, talking to people, like huge energy. So you do a very nice job of listening and staying engaged and being ready to jump in when it's your time. So
that's a really big compliment. Thank you so much.
Cool. All right. Good.
He's never given myself or Jackson that, Kaylie, so you should feel very honored.
I do.
Matt, of course, you're the author. Matt, of course, you're the author of A Better Way of Thinking, which I think every Jeopardy player could use to go back to that topic on the betting that goes on in Jeopardy. But more importantly, it could certainly be used this Friday and Saturday at Churchill Downs, as you have there's a feeder contest through Twin Spires that'll be on Friday, and then there's obviously the main Kentucky Derby betting challenge on Saturday. So let's start with the Kentucky Oaks. Let me get the past performances back up here, because I know, Matt, you love those and use them just so religiously.
I don't know what they look like, yeah.
So we'll start with the Oaks, and actually my first question will be, when you start, you have a live bankroll, so you can kind of bet how you please. Let me actually take the past performances off here so we can all talk. But so you start with a live bankroll. For anyone that doesn't know how the tournament works, you can bet win bets, exactas, trifectas, daily doubles, place and show bets as well. How do you manage that bankroll on a day like Derby, on a day like the qualifier, to get into the Derby day? And then I'll piggyback that into actual Derby day.
All right. So a little bit, I'm like one of these wind-up dolls. If I start going in the wrong direction or talking too long, just cut me off, pick me up, turn me in a different direction. That's fine. It's funny. These are two wildly different contests between Friday and Saturday. And I actually want to go back to something Andy said in his segment. These are really tough days, and these are really good days for watching. I happen to think tournaments provide a very good structured way of keeping your betting under control as you're watching all these races that are so interesting. If you plot out a little bit of tournament strategy, your money can last you for most of the day, hopefully, or most of the weekend, and you're not feeling a need to just keep firing. I mean, it's not good contest strategy to just fire all day, and yet you're seeing all these great races with these competitive horses. I'm with Andy that I try as hard as I can on these big days just to watch. And so for me, these contests are a nice way of kind of keeping it under control. The Friday contest in particular, we should talk about the difference between, and I'm not sitting here to give a lesson on anything, but between a feeder and an actual event. And the Friday contest is a feeder. The main difference being feeders tend to pay the same top prize for the most part to a whole bunch of people, usually a feeder into another event like the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. So whether you come in first, which is great because your name's in first and everyone thinks you're cool, or whether you're in 10th, and if there are 15 slots that pay, both of those people could say they won. And yeah, the person at first made a little more money that day, but the person in 10th doesn't care at all. So Friday being a feeder, your level of aggression can come down quite a bit. And what does it take to win a feeder on Oaks Day? I can't tell you that exactly. I can tell you for tournaments of this size that are being run on Twin Spires, I would describe this sort of contest as one that's like a two-hitter. You kind of have to nail a couple things pretty well. That frankly could be a couple short-priced horses, but you have to have enough behind them that you're betting like you mean it. But I would say for Friday, I should probably, it's a little bit of a fail on my part. I don't have the info in front of me. I think it's $1,000 entry, 500 and 500 of cash.
It is.
Perfect. So with 500 of cash, I would say typically, don't worry about the guy in first that just hit some crazy exacta and kind of overbet the pot because they didn't think that their crazy combo would win. Again, those people don't matter that much in these feeders. But to look at towards the top of the board, I would estimate that you would need to turn $500 into the rate, somewhere in the range of 3,000, something like that. In general, I've been a little unimpressed with some totals lately. I think a lot of people feel they've needed to fire more than they have. And so some people have been betting themselves out of contention. So maybe 2,500 would be a loose target for me. And based on the way I bet, it's unlikely that would just be hit with one huge thing right away. That's just not really my style. And I'm looking for things with a higher strike rate. So for me, it's find something somewhere, early, middle part of the card. And then frankly, the way these tournaments are often won, you have to look towards that last race. And so I'm going to be looking at the Oaks. The thing that's interesting for me that bridges these two contests is this Oaks Derby double. And I don't usually get a chance to hedge a contest in a way that bet is going to afford me to do. So my hope is, and I'm looking to Kaylee, to little bro, to you, Ryan. Yeah, you're taking this out. That's fine. I said it on your own podcast. Just take it.
You did.
I'm looking for some good ideas. I'm looking for, hey, here's a couple of 4-to-1s that look like a good chance, or here's a 2x2 double sequence that if you bet it right, you can be in position. But I'm going to be looking to have a total that I have in mind for what I want to bet into the Oaks. It should not shock the world, knowing I'm a chalk player. I do think that horse is going to be awfully tough.
Talking about good cheer.
A good cheer is be awfully tough. I know it's the 11 horse. I don't want to get my names confused. And it's funny, just as I looked at some PPs, as I'm listening to some commentary on some shows, I'm actually getting some weird Barbaro vibes in terms of just the undefeated. I think Barbaro might have even been 6-6 going into the Derby. That would be a weird thing to remember. But and yet people still poking holes and still arguing for why the odds shouldn't be so low. And I don't know. The horse to me feels like a winner. To some extent, as a Chicagoan, I know what that is. I lived with Michael Jordan in this town for a lot of years, and I know what it's like for someone to have just a winning mentality. And that horse seems to have it. So that'll be good.
She certainly does. I think that's an excellent point. I know Jackson is also on good cheer in the Oaks, and I think good cheer is the most likely winner. I'm trying to find value elsewhere from like a single race betting perspective. So just to talk about that real quick, obviously you're a big cash on the side type of player. So in a tournament, like you just mentioned, if we're going into the Kentucky Oaks and we have a bankroll and the plan is to bet it on good cheer, and that's going to put you in a position to qualify, I guess, for Saturday and get whatever number of seats that you're at now. What are you looking in a tournament perspective to play the most likely winner in the tournament and then play, maybe some good value bets on the side, or how would you approach that just from, a cash versus tournament play?
So maybe I'm overcomplicating things a little bit, but I'm going to try and pull some ninja moves between these two contests and put them together. The horse I like in the Oaks is good cheer. The horses I like in the Derby are Journalism and Luxor Cafe. And given that the prize associated with the contest on Friday is so much smaller. So Saturday is it's a major. We'll be talking about it in a little bit, but you're going to hear BCBC kind of talk in terms of strategy, in terms of multiples to win and things like that. So for me, what I'd love to do is kind of get that early hit on Oaks Day, get to the Oaks, and split my life in two different directions. One is going to be try to win this contest, make my $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, make the $5,000 profit on the seat that I'm going to win. The other direction I'm going to go is to go in the direction of the Oaks Derby double And so I will essentially be hedging this contest with a Derby pick. My hope being, okay, if I lose the Oaks contest, at least in theory, I could be alive on the side. I would have lost to someone that puts me alive to a horse in the Derby for a fair amount of money. And that actually, without getting too complicated, would then change what I do on Saturday, because I'm not the kind of player that's just going to sit here saying Luxor Cafe no matter what. And if I happen to win 3 different contests and 6 different cash bets, all with this thing, that's not going to happen. I'm going to win one thing probably. If that happens, it might be a huge cash bet. It might be the tournament. But I'm not hitting a 15 or 12 to 1 shot in both places. Mm-hmm. It's too much money. Despite the reputation I have for risk taking or whatnot, it's really quite the opposite in a lot of ways. And I wouldn't want to put that much of my fun, that much of my money, that much of my feelings all on one thing. So, okay, so let's get back to your Friday contest question. Get up to $3,000 somehow. I think in general, these contests are usually won and lost in the last race. That's a little less true with feeders. They tend to be a little bit more based on just the hand-to-hand combat, based on the number of seats available, and there's a little bit more finesse and game theory to it. You get to Saturday, forget all that. The reason I look forward to the Derby contest less than the Breeders' Cup contest is only one reason, which is typically in the Breeders' Cup, at least the old way when the big race was the last race. The last race, the Classic, didn't feel unsolvable. It just felt like a really important race, but it was certainly one that you could handicap, you come up with reasonable opinions. Even if you're wrong, you might just be slightly wrong. The Derby, again, I'll echo what Andy said. I think I've been a pretty average Derby picker over the course of my life. So the idea of playing a contest where it's a major, you're going to have to win the last race to win this contest, and to tell me that's going to be the hardest race of the year to pick, okay, that's tough. It is what it is, and if you don't like it, don't play the game. And I do like it, and I will play the game, but it's tough. And so taking my style of tournament play into account is critical at this point, because, again, starting from the end, again, and Jackson, I have a feeling you're going to nod and say I'm right. Hopefully, $5,000 entry. I think $3,500 of that is in cash.
Yeah.
And so, okay, for a major, what is it going to take to win this thing? Well, that's already a hard question to answer. I would say 15 to 17 times your money. Not times 5,000, but times 3,500. But in the Derby, where there's exactas and trifectas that complete wonders, if there are horses out of the money, if there are favorites out of the money, you might see people just hit totals obscenely high by accident, where they just had no idea this trifecta was going to pay $16,000 and they'd have it 6 times. They just had a $6 try. They didn't have any idea it was going to really work out that way. So I definitely think it's possible you're going to see some aberrational totals at the end, unlike in the Breeders' Cup, which tend to be a little bit more formulaic. But the question is, who do you want to play in the Derby? And let's go back to the way I was talking before. If I'm already alive to journalism in a massive double, well, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to play this contest trying to get alive to Luxor Cafe? That horse will be 12 to 1. And to get to 50 grand, all it's going to take is like 4 grand or 5 grand. And so all I have to do is turn my 3,500 into 5 grand, not blow it, and then just wait to the end to bet on my horse to win. Yeah, that's actually a reasonable strategy. If you like sovereignty more than my pick, look, it only takes double that amount. And that's just on a simple win bet. There's people sitting at home saying, yeah, but why do you need the bet so big? Okay, I mean, you can take the same amount and spread it around in a bunch of exactas. I'd argue, we could argue about who's taking more or less risk in those scenarios, especially in 20-horse races where crazy stuff often happens with respect to second and third place. So that's the plan for me for Saturday. It is to work backwards. I don't know yet if my key play in the last race will be journalism or Luxor Cafe. That's going to be decided Friday. And I would love to be alive to just an obscenely large double that makes it easy to root for journalism on the side and play this contest. I mean, heck, if I can afford a second or a third long shot, that would be terrific. And Sovereignty would definitely be a top choice for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all that insight. That was a ton of information, but every single word of it was useful. You didn't go off on, I didn't have to pick you up and place you in a different direction. So that was great. Jackson, I have a quick question for you. There are 2 races that are after the Oaks and after the Derby on both days. Are those in okay, good. Okay. That's what I wanted to confirm. I figured it would end.
Saturday, I know is not. Friday, I'm not sure. Saturday definitely is not.
Usually not. And I'm putting my friend Darren on the spot here without, again, it's like a host fail where you don't know. It's actually a lawyer fail. You're not supposed to ask questions you don't already know the answers to. The better run tournaments tend to end on the big final race. There are reasons that some tracks will include those last couple of races in certain tournaments, but that really kind of stinks. You know, you really want to build up to this big thing. And I am nearly certain, knowing Darren, that these contests end on the Oaks and end on the Derby. Okay.
Good to know. I assume so as well. I think Jackson's looking it up right now go ahead.
Friday is the whole card. So there are 2 races after the Oaks. And then the Derby is the last on Saturday. So the big one ends on the big one.
The big one ends on the big one. All right. So question to go back to the qualifier. If I have no seats, obviously you can get, 2 seats into the KDBC on Saturday. So if I were to, get 2 entries and I'm in, do I play those together if I have strong opinions? Do I branch them out so I can only get 1 seat? How would your approach be if you're, if maybe you, well, I know the answer that would come if I said you can't afford the second seat in the KDBC. So I know that answer. So hypothetically, we'll just say, I have 2 entries in. How would I approach it wanting to get 2 qualifiers?
So I would look at the KDBC. And again, I'm going to pick on something else Andy said that I liked, where he talked about this being along the continuum of his life and not just one huge thing, right? This for me it's a huge weekend. It's a fun weekend, but it's just there's a lot of weekends. So there's a lot of tournaments. There's also a lot of years. Mm-hmm. And I would say I'm going to change your question. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll play politician for a minute. If I had the choice between playing the KDBC with 1 entry every year or playing twice every other year, I would take the 2 entries every other year and just try and find something else fun to do on the year off. But I think there is so much value in having 2 entries in these tournaments, at least based on the way that I've historically been successful in using those. And these are not independent, try and take a shot over here and later on take a shot over there. Like, no, this is take these 2 bullets and find a way. It's not to combine them, but to find a way to find a play where you can use them to either help or hurt each other. And in some cases, that takes races that look really, really difficult or unplayable. And when you say, well, actually, you have 2 or 3 horses that race, you say, oh, wow, well, the Pate Mile felt impossible to me, 5 minutes ago. But if you tell me I get my pick of 3 horses and you're going to be able to bet your tournament in a way to get yourself live at the end, if just one of with 2 entries, that's something that's doable. With 1 entry, you have to take a stand. I don't recommend taking that stand. And then if you're, whether you're right or wrong, then just with another entry, taking another random stand somewhere else, you can see how putting these things together gives you a way better chance, because if your key horse is going to lose, it's going to lose to one of the others, and you have a chance to take that one too. And so that for me has been the trick to spot picking in these tournaments. Yes, sometimes I very much want to just find a stone cold single and go with it. But even if it's a 2x2 sequence using doubles or win bets or whatever it is, having the ability to take the two entries and leverage one to help the other has just been critical. The tough question in the KDBC is when to do that. In the Oaks feeder, my recommendation is to do that early because it tends to be a one hitter or a two hitter. And so if you can kind of early set yourself up, you should be in a good spot. Well, with the KDBC, you're really going to need to hit probably 2 to 3 things pretty hard. Sometimes you'll see people try to, and I talk about it in terms of getting to the third level. Well, if you can take both of your entries with you to level 2, well, then you're in an unbelievable spot to spread off in different directions at that point. So maybe you find some 4 to 5 shot that you're madly in love with early on. You shove both entries to win on that. You just pray that you didn't blow, your entire day early. But if you get them both through, you essentially get to milestone number 2 really with good ammunition. And yeah, that's hard. That's something that sounds really tempting and really interesting. But when you're not, the hard part is having the stones to do that in the first race. Are you really going to put both entries on the same thing to be able to do that? And on these days where, especially when I'm there, and when I'm focused on fun, I admit I let that infect my strategy a little bit, where I don't want to just bust out immediately and just be done like that. I mean, if I am, I am. But I prefer it not to be on a single, if possible, that early on in the day.
Totally get it. Jackson, did you have something?
Well, I was just gonna say, just with everything you've said so far, like this, you don't have to do this in a tournament setting either. Like maybe you can't afford to play for $5,000, but you can play for $100 and do these exact same strategies, and you have these very precise guidelines. Like I want to turn my $100 and do $1,000 today, and you just do the exact same strategy you just said using your opinions, and you bet very few select races and try to get it done that way.
I would call the best ever Jedi in training, Drew Coatney, completely cut his teeth in tournament play doing these synthetic fake tournaments on his own, where what he actually fell in love with was this other concept in the book of just having goals. And when someone says, okay, it's Derby day, this is awesome, I've got $500 that I'm ready to fire with, what you don't usually hear them say next is what they're trying to do or where they're trying to get. They just know how much fun they're going to have, and they've got plenty of ammo, and it's going to be great. But if you said like, "What's great?" they'd still give a stupid answer like, "Oh yeah, hitting tons of winners and some multi-race thing." I mean, just right. Get specific, and people don't want to be specific, especially on Derby day. You want to think, "Oh, I might hit that $52,000 whatever." Okay, look, if that's part of your strategy, that can be part of your strategy. If you want to make yourself alive to that to some degree, that's fine. You should still have some idea of what you're trying to do. And if you are a $500 player on Saturday, I would ask yourself, if you get up to $2,000, are you happy? Are you done? By the way, that could happen after 3 races. And so then what are you going to do? I'm not telling you what to do. Mm-hmm. I'm suggesting to have a plan. I have one friend in particular who often suffered some really bad results at the track because, in my opinion, he would often get into the territory of having succeeded, but he would keep playing. And then he would kind of fall out of that range, and it's hard to kind of get back there without some other hit. And so to me, look, when you're at a casino and you lose your limit, you're done. There's nothing left in the pocket. Well, I say the same thing when you've hit your goal. Look, if you've exceeded your goal, you started with 500, you think 2,500 would be incredible. You end up hitting some double, you get up to 2,900. Perfect. Take your 2,500, go out and celebrate, have a great dinner. I'd still mess around with that $400, right? It's extra, it's beyond goal. have a good time. Set up a new goal, right? Maybe it's now to take 400 into 1,000. Whatever, I'm not imposing judgment. That could take 400 into 500. Whatever it is for you, but just have some idea where you're going. I otherwise would have no idea how to recommend to someone to look at these Oaks Derby doubles and start making selections for the amounts that they want to bet. Look, it's important to have your picks and to have your opinions and to bet those opinions and to not spread them around too much. But at the same time, I would spend equal amounts of time on your budget, how much you're spending between the 2 days. One of the reasons I like this Oaks Derby double, it's great for money management. If you hit the first half, you're good all Saturday.
You're locked in.
No matter what, and if you bet it good enough, you're alive to a score all Saturday, no matter how much you screw up the rest of Saturday. And like I'm saying, if you're smart enough or dumb enough, we'll see, to include it in your tournament strategy, boy, they could really open up a whole bunch of things. So we'll see. I guess one of the points I'm making here on a broader basis is to try to think holistically. It's not just Friday. It's not just Saturday. It's not just a tournament. You can play cash alongside your tournament. So if you do get to that Pat Day mile and you do say, oh my gosh, what a wonderful spot. Every horse in the race is 3-1 that I like. I'm going to take 2 of them and bet my entire bankroll going in these 2 directions. But there's a third horse I love. Well, that's why you have a FanDuel account. That's why you have a Naira Bets account. That's why I'm not trying to pick one of them. That's why you can bet cash on the side. And I'm not saying hedge everything exactly to the dollar, but maybe you try to get what you put into the contest out of that side bet so that you don't feel like the dummy of the year when your third of 3 horses wins. It's just something to think about. And again, the amounts are up to you, but I would just encourage people to keep cash. For me, when I go about these tournaments, other than the Breeders' Cup, because frankly, the amounts just get too large. And despite perceptions of me, I am not that kind of large player. I don't feel like I can really hedge the Breeders' Cup. Other tournaments, pretty much of any size, I feel like I can. And so a key part of my arsenal is to have money in the account ready to go, just in case I find one of these key spots where I love the spot, but I would just love to hit one other thing. And yeah, don't spread in the tournament too much and dilute your payouts too much. Then you're going to need to hit too many things in the tournament. Play your tournament, sharpen up, and hit it on the side if you need to.
Incredible. Thank you, Matt, for all of that. That was exceptional. Kaylee, I want to throw it to you. I know I haven't yet. Do you have any questions for Matt that you'd like to ask?
No, but that was very interesting to hear. I mean, I'm not a big tournament player, but I've always kind of wanted to get involved. So it was definitely interesting to learn. And some of the strategies that you have in that is just strategies I use in, I guess, my regular betting. So interesting to hear all of that. Definitely, I mean, I won't be participating in any contest or anything. Derby weekend, I'm just more so of a traditional bettor, but it was definitely really interesting to hear.
Yeah, well, don't be so sure. It depends where we happen to be standing when these things start. But I often have a way of grabbing someone and saying, hey, congratulations, you're in the contest. Let's teach you live how these things work. And it ends up being quite a bit of fun. And for real, you're a sharp handicapper. Go make your own plays, go make it your own opinions, but take some of the strategy and the aggression I'm trying to explain in terms of how to deploy it. And yeah, I've got a whole bunch of friends that went from, I don't really do this, to just go check out the Twin Spires Tour leaderboard. It's littered with buddies that didn't used to do this stuff. So
yeah, definitely really interesting. I guess probably the best way to learn is to actually do it. So
agreed.
No doubt. And we haven't plugged it yet, but if you have not had the chance to go check out A Better Way of Thinking, the book that you wrote, Matt, it's excellent. I think if you get the audio listen, it's only about, I think it's like 8 to 10 hours, somewhere in there. It's an easy read because you clearly have that. We all have that much work left to do before before Friday and Saturday is upon us. So you just have that on in the background. It's great to listen to and absorb that way. I threw it in the chat, the website that is, for anybody that wants to go check that out. Again, audiobook, physical copy, whatever it is, it's exceptional. I like to use the goal kind of mindset for me. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was going to say, and how about this for a bold statement? Just taking a guess as to the amount of time that the three of you, plus all of the listeners, have spent directly handicapping, listening to the handicapping opinions of others. Do you really think between now and the Oaks and the Derby, you are better off listening to more of that or advice on betting? I can't imagine anyone would really choose A, given the amount of time they have spent over handicapping, right? Especially when someone then says surface change, it's just condition or weather change, or everyone goes crazy like that. And so for real, and I'm not just trying to plug a book, I'm trying to plug an idea. Spend time on your betting. You spend so much time on the picking. And honestly, it's not even the harder part. So there.
Handicapping really does not mean shit at the end of the day if you are not good at betting and, playing your opinions effectively. So, Matt, thank you so much. That was exceptional. I hope all of our listeners got a lot out of that. I'm sure. I know I did. I know Kaylee did. I know Jackson always does. So good luck on Friday's tournament. Good luck in the KDBC. Obviously, we'll be in touch, and we're always in your corner rooting for you. So best of luck as you go on, and let's keep having a good week leading up to the Derby.
All right, cool. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Matt. Take care.
All
right. That was Matt Miller. Obviously, excellent guest as always. We have another Matt waiting in the wings who I'm excited to talk about. Talk with. He's back on the show. He's calling races at Oaklawn Park, and they without a doubt have the second best card this weekend on Saturday. It is, of course, Matt Dinerman. Matt, how's it going? How are you doing today?
Hi, guys. Good to be on with you. Everything good here. We're getting a little rain out of the way. I'm right on the water here. I live right on the lake, and it's raining pretty good out here right now. But we might have a little bit of some moisture in the ground tomorrow. But Friday and Saturday looks to me, based on the forecast, we're going to have a good track here. But, of course, there's a lot of good racing all over the country. And this week, I'm sure any fan of racing will be watching.
Without a doubt. But let's stay on Oaklawn for just a second before we get into the Oaks and the Derby. You guys have your closing weekend coming up, closing day on Saturday. I believe it's a 14 or 12 race program on Saturday. Go ahead.
Yeah, 12 races. First post will be noon Central Time. Like you said, and I guess I'm biased, but just I've looked at the other cards to see what kind of cards other tracks are running, to see what kind of good racing's around. And I would say our card's probably the second best card behind Churchill. Big fields, I think 11 and a half horses a race before also eligibles. So everybody's going to want to try to get one last run in with the horses that are around here. And it's for a fun day. We'll have, I think, 5 stakes races in the next 3 days. And our big feature on the Saturday features last year's Kentucky Derby winner, Mystic Dan. So I've been watching him train, and I've got some tidbits for you on that in a little bit. But he'll be going up against Saudi Crown, who's no doubt the horse to beat in the Lake Ouachita. But Mystic Dan, I think, believe it or not, probably is the headline story of the race.
I would certainly agree. Yeah, if you decide to, bet outside of Churchill, it doesn't get any easier if you go to Oaklawn Park. But the betting product there is fantastic, to say the least. Real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to ask Matt about the Trails End race because it's such a fun one. Are those ones more difficult to call, or is it about the same? Or are they easier just because it's so long? Like, what are your thoughts on those really marathon races? We don't have too many of those.
Well, the good news, Jackson, is that there's a big field. 14 horses are in it. I don't know if all of them will run, but we'll get 12 of them at the least. So with that in mind, it gives me more horses to go over and things to say. I would say it's a harder race to call, those marathons in general, because there's more time on the mic. Sometimes when horses get in that good rhythm and there's not a lot of change of position, there's only so much you can say. But at least with the big field, it gives the announcer an opportunity to really stay focused on each horse, and it takes a little while to get through the field. And it's always fun, though, because sometimes in those races you see horses make middle race moves and things really start changing the complexion of the race into the turn. So I would say those are some of the more fun later races to call, but in the middle part of it, sometimes it can get a little bit tricky.
I love it.
It can definitely get.
It's always a fun race to watch.
It is.
There's not too many of those.
It's our crew here does very good with creating interesting conditions and fun conditions and calling it the Trails End. I don't know exactly how long we've been running that race, but it's been a while, and it's cool because last year I got to experience it for the first time. All the horses come on the track with the ponies, and they all turn to the crowd and they salute the crowd, and the crowd salutes them. So it's just a cool race to end the meet.
It is a very cool race to end the meet, and you go, about 14 horses deep for that race. So let's stick on the big field aspect for a sec, because obviously that's in play in a big way in the Derby, and basically to that same effect of 14 horses in the Oaks. How difficult is it? Obviously, with the marathon distance, you have enough time to call every horse's name probably a handful of times, going as long as they do in the Trails End. But in a race like the Kentucky Oaks, you're going 9 furlongs. How difficult is it to kind of get everybody's name out, get everybody's name called? Because I know, the connections always want to hear their horse's name, even if they're a million lengths out the back. How much work has to go into just preparing to get all the silks memorized, the numbers, and then just everything like that?
Well, I can't speak for Travis or Larry. Larry, of course, Larry Comas will be calling for NBC Peacock somewhere in one of those channels, or both of them. And Travis Stone, obviously, for Churchill Downs. I can't speak for them personally, but I can say that with the big fields I've called in big stakes races, they're typically in stakes. And I think the memorization for me personally is a little bit easier because we already know all the horses. I mean, we all know what journalism, what his silks are going to look like. So in a race like that, it's more important that you have a good mental mindset going into it, because when you get good at race calling, the race really slows down for you. It's very similar to a jockey observing what's around him. A lot of good jockeys, they'll say, when I first started out, the race was very quick, and as time goes on, the race really slows down for me. And I think that's the same thing with race callers and being able to watch a race. And if the race slows down for you, it makes your job a lot more simple. I actually think it'd be harder to memorize 12 horses that are first-time starters that we've never seen before than maybe 20 Kentucky Derby horses in the starting gate, as we've watched a lot of the preps. So the key there, I think, for Larry and Travis, for anybody calling a big race, it happens with me in the Arkansas Derby and the Haskell, is just taking a deep breath and sort of going one horse at a time during the race. And when the break happens, note whatever's going on as you see it. And usually the good news is route races, I would say horses really do separate themselves and really sort themselves out nicely. I would say calling a 14-horse sprint could be a little more difficult because everybody's go, 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 versus a mile and an eighth or a mile and a quarter, where the first furlong, they're scrimmaging for position. But in these longer races, as you all know, it's about getting these horses in a good rhythm and a good stride. And once they do, horses really sort themselves out. And once you have them memorized, you get in the rhythm as an announcer, and then you're on the roller coaster and you just have to hold on and keep it going.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that was just excellent insight into how to prepare for a race, calling that many horses, what makes it easy, maybe what's more difficult towards there. So we'll transition now into the Kentucky Oaks. It's going to go on Friday. Obviously one of the two biggest races of the weekend. I'll throw the past performances up. I don't need you to give me any official picks unless you'd like to, but Matt, when you look at this race, let's first talk about the pace scenario. How did you see it? Did you see a winner, coming from right on top of the pace, or perhaps, mid-pack or deep closer?
I think you're probably in this race going to see more of a stock or a mid-pack type of horse win. Maybe even a horse that can get to the lead. I would say my guess would be someone who is stalking or fairly close, and stalking could be 6-7 in the early part of the race in a large field like this. So, you have Good Cheer, a filly that's not going to be too close to the pace. She's going to have a target to chase, but I think she's a little more tactical than people give her credit for. But I think the pace here will be pretty darn solid, and I think the pace is going to be fast. And I feel that a runner like Good Cheer can sort of just sit right off of it. And in terms of trip, I don't think she'd want to draw any farther out than she is, but 11's about probably where you start pushing it. So I don't think the post is a huge problem. If she was in the 14, that would be a little more concern for me. But Louise Size is good at getting these horses out of the gate. So I think the key with him really is getting her out of the gate. I think he's going to have to use her up a little bit to get a good position, because if he doesn't, he might get left going wide into the turn and a little too far back. So I think he's going to have to ride this filly aggressive out of the gate. She's the one to beat, but I'm not necessarily thinking she's unbeatable in here, because I think the runners she faces this time around, some of them are a little bit tougher and going in the right direction.
Definitely. There are obviously some up-and-coming 3-year-old fillies. Good Cheer doesn't tower over the field on speed figures. So you can certainly find a price if you like it, or if you have a really strong opinion that Good Cheer is going to, take a step forward. Obviously, you can play that opinion as you wish. Matt, as you kind of handicap this card, I know I've seen a few opinions out there, but through Friday, it maybe looks a little on the chalkier side. There's some big names, I would say, like the star names, like those Torpedo Annas, the Fierceness, the Locked of the world are running on Friday, but perhaps it looks a little more chalk based. And then Saturday is really just, obviously you still have the A and the A+ names, but deep fields and just ultra competitive races. Were there any races either on Friday or Saturday that stood out to you that has a horse you really like that should get the setup and get the win?
Yeah, so I really like a filly in this race in the 8 Bells. I am a big fan of the race. I think the race is a fun race every year. It's sort of interesting because sometimes that race comes up super strong, other times not as much. I think it's a little bit on the lighter side. So with that in mind, I've got a filly that ran at Oaklawn that I really like, Mandela, for the Chris Hartman barn. She won by about 7 lengths for fun on March 30th. And we knew this filly could run before she ever ran. She was really posting good works before her first race. And she was a little bit of an unlucky loser first time out. And she ran set to Dare to Fly, who came back to hit the board in a stake first time routing. And then she came back Mandela and easily won that day and showed a big burst. It was one of the more impressive maiden wins of the whole meet for trainer Chris Hartman. I'm really excited to see how she does, because on rags, she really has an edge here. And if she can even improve, Chris Hartman a lot better with second-time starters than first-time starters, and his horses typically get better with time. So maybe if she can jump forward again, she's got a real big kick, should get a good trip from off what's going to be a good pace. I really think Mandela, number 7 in the 8 Bells. Maybe a little bit biased coming from Oaklawn, but I really do think that she's going to run a very big race, and I think people are going to remember her name because of that. I think she's very, very good.
Yeah,
I love that.
I just finished the show over Within the Money. We covered pretty much all the long shot horses that people like on the weekend. 3 of the 4 people on the panel all love Mandela on Friday. So
yeah, so she won't be 15-1.
Yeah, but maybe like 8. I mean, 8's still a really good price in a race like this. I mean, there's a lot of directions you can go in, and Chris likes him too. Chris is another one.
Nice, Chris. Yeah, I just think she's getting better. She was on the wrong lead last time out. She wasn't on the correct lead down the lane. A little bit of a concern, but she's got a lethal kick. And I think they've really been pointing for this race. And Chris Hartman, he could have run her in an allowance race, first level, non-2, but he opts to run her in here. He was sort of going back and forth into what he wanted to do. So I think this sort of tips his hand a little bit if he says, let's give the 8 Bells a try. I think that's telling you that he's really happy with how she's doing.
I agree. I think that means she's coming into this in great form. And you mentioned she's going to get the pace set up here, going the 7 furlongs. She got a good one going 6 at Oaklawn. It would make sense to go in 7 with the amount of pace signed on in here that she could certainly get a good setup. Let's transition into the Kentucky Derby now, as we have obviously 20 horses to talk about in there. I'm going to pull up those past performances, but Matt, I have an unrelated question. Your X handle, 3 Colts handicap, how did that come about?
So that was from years ago when I was like you guys in school trying to get in the business. I made a blog called 3 Colts Handicapping. And myself, a good friend of mine named Tyler Hoffman, who I know, Ryan, you know very well, and Jackson, I'm sure you've met him. Kaylie, I don't know if you've met him. He's on the West Coast. Very, very, very good handicapper. He's played in numerous tournaments with his dad. Great guy. They're just a great family. And also Carlos Ortega, who's a good friend of mine. He lives in San Diego. He's not in the racing business, but a big fan of horse racing. We made a blog. We'd write picks and analysis. And we made the Twitter 3 Colts Handicap, at 3 Colts Handicap. And when that blog was disapparated, for lack of a better term. I talked to Tyler and Carlos, who are still very close friends to today. And I said, what should we do with this Twitter handle? And they said, oh, you should just make it your own. So I didn't have a Twitter handle. And they said, you can make it your own. It's fine. So I think because it's such a unique name, I just decided to keep it and stick with it. And I would imagine it's going to stick with me forever. And it's also sort of symbolic for me because it reminds me of my roots and having to work really hard to achieve my goals and remembering Three Colts handicapping. And at Three Colts handicap, that's really sentimental for me.
That's awesome. Thank you for telling me. I've wondered that since the first time you were on the show, and I've forgotten to ask until now. So thank you for filling us all in on that. That certainly means a lot. All right, let's transition to the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, again, we're going 1.25 miles for these 3-year-old boys. 20 horses in the field. How do you approach the Derby every year, Matt? Like from a handicapping perspective, how do you kind of tackle this monster? Do you treat it as any other race? What's your approach?
I treat it as yes and no. I treat it as any other race, but I don't. And here it's not really answering the question, but essentially I do look for certain things in this race that are different factors than maybe most races I would look at. For example, I'm really, really think it's important to find a horse, that's got a kick and a stride. Doesn't need to be a massive turf turn of foot, but a horse that's shown a little bit of a kick. And a horse that appears to want to go 10 furlongs, because there are a lot of horses that are older horses that don't want to go 10 furlongs. Most of the time, the first thing I look at in any race is the pace. So I do look at the pace. It's the first thing I always look at. And I think it's the most important because, in my opinion, the best horse doesn't always win the race. Sometimes the horse that's ready to run that day and gets the best trip can win a race. So I in that respect, I do handicap like any other race, but I don't handicap it like every other race because I am very much leaning towards trying to find horses that 1.25 miles is going to suit them well. And also something that I look for in a race like this is a horse that is going in the right direction. Doesn't need to be the best looking horse on paper. It doesn't need to be the fastest looking horse, but needs to be the horse that going into this race is really peaking and doing well. So there's a long shot that I do like in my top few that we'll talk about. But in this case, I think Journalism really checks off all the boxes. He wants to go this far. He's got a great running style. There's going to be some pace. He's going to be stalking it. I hate to be uncreative here, but it just sure looks like he's the best horse, and it sure looks like he's going to get a decent trip in this spot. Hopefully, he doesn't have any traffic issues. He's coming into this race great. I'm a workout guy. I've watched a lot of workouts in my life, so when I am able to see workouts, I really pay attention to those. I think workouts can tell you a lot about younger horses especially, and I love the way he worked over the track the other morning. So I think he is absolutely the horse to beat, and I'm going to pick him in here as the top pick anyway.
Yeah, I saw a video of him on one of the morning works the other day going out to the work. Almost looked like a dressage horse the way he was moving. He really just glides. I want to ask Kaylie, Jackson, and you too, Matt. But we've all been on our fair share of shows. We've all talked about the Derby. We've all heard from other handicappers. Journalism. I can't remember as many respected handicappers coming back to a favorite in the Derby in recent memory anyway, like I can with Journalism. That to me at least speaks volumes. Everybody, this is the race to find value. It's the race to find that horse at a good price that you want. Jackson, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts? Everybody kind of comes back to Journalism. People weren't going to fierceness like this last year in this amount. I know he was bet down lower than what Journalism's going to be, but it was never like this horse is, I don't know. It feels like they're really talking about Journalism in a different way.
I don't know if I completely agree with that, but
okay.
What I'll say to that is kind of like the Oaks. Like it feels like it's Journalism, and then that second tier of horses, you can make a pretty good case for a number of them. So it's kind of the money's kind of split between that, the second and fifth choice, which is going to be, the Rodriguez's, the Sovereignty, Sandman, and Luxor Cafe, I guess you could put in that category too. And I think the money's kind of going to split between those four. But the problem is those four are all kind of slower than this horse, and they're all come from way out of it, except for Rodriguez, who's supposed to be involved in kind of a wicked pace. And Journalism, just as Matt kind of touched upon, he's supposed to get a really sweet trip in this race, and he's the fastest horse. So I think he's just kind of the one you kind of have to fear, of course, in this race. He just makes a lot of sense.
Okay, that's fair. Kaylee, any thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, he's going to be on all my tickets. I'm pretty terrified of this horse beating me if I try to play against him. But in terms of who I'm going to bet to win, I mean, I'm going to try to take a stab in another direction. I just think, in the Derby, that's the time to do it. Even if this horse is, the creme de la creme, which I think he very well could be, I'm still going to try to, play against him at least, with a win bet, but he will be on my pick fives. And I don't really remember a time that a horse has looked this consistently good leading up to the Derby as well. You're talking about how he's working on the track. I mean, he's pretty superior to a lot of these horses in many ways. And it'll be interesting to see how he does outside of California. If you're trying to poke holes, I mean, I guess you could say that he's dealing with a huge field, which is a big jump up from the 5-horse fields that, he has been facing. But I think he's just that good that he has I'd say a pretty good shot at winning. And I guess he drew pretty well as well. But yeah, I'm going to take a stab at Sovereignty. I know he drew the 18 hole, but as long as that horse can save a bit of ground into the first turn, which they should be pretty spread out. So I think that he should have a good spot to move over. I think if he's able to, find a good position going into that first turn, he stands a really good chance. And I also think that a horse like Sandman is probably going to take, a ton of money. I honestly really wouldn't be surprised if, he was bet down to like 4-1, 3-1 come Derby day. But yeah, I'm going to try to play against those two for that reason, because it's the Derby. But
of course, I'm really happy that you brought up Sandman, because that leads me into my next question. Matt, I want to throw it back to you. This horse obviously has, a huge public following and a huge public backing, whether it's the color being gray, partial ownership with the social media influencer, or just the fact that it's named after a Metallica song, and they've, merged out the crew for the training, the trainer and his crew. Anyway, Sandman, is this a horse that you like? Obviously, you called this one in the Arkansas Derby along with Publisher and Cole Battle and some others on this trail. Is this one that you're going to give a strong look to, or is this one where the value is not going to be there because of all those, existing factors?
Well, I think both. This horse, I've had a difficult time trying to figure out what to do in this race with him, because on the one hand, I'd be disappointed if he didn't finish in at least the top 5 or 6. I really would. I mean, everything indicates that this horse should just run a really solid race. And with that in mind, he's going to love the distance. Yeah, last time out, he got everything right. He got just a perfect setup. Everything really fell into his lap. But he is getting better, and the distance is going to be great for him. He's going to get another pace, it appears, in here. But at the same time, I think that this horse, when you look at who he's finished ahead of, Publisher and Cole Battle, their prices in this race. I mean, even though he looks like he's fast enough to run a very effective race and could very well win, I also think that, like I said, he got everything his own way last time. The value's probably not going to be there. And there are better horses in here. If Journalism was in that last race in the Arkansas Derby, does he win? Probably. He probably outfinishes this horse. So I feel like for me, if I played pick fives, I'm using him, but I'm not using him on every ticket if I'm an A, B, and C player. He might be a B for me, and if I needed to, maybe even make him a C. But I would absolutely use him underneath an exotic. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he won. If he won the race, it wouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But I think in terms of a bet, I think there's other ways to go, or maybe the value might be a little bit better. I'm convinced he's a very good horse, and I'm convinced he'll run well. But is he running well enough to win? I don't know. I think that he will need to run a little bit faster off that last race where things sort of set up for him. But certainly one that should be considered a main player.
Yeah, definitely. Jackson and I have been joking around. This horse is a cinch to finish in 4th, in the Derby. He's going to be coming late, but he's just going to be coming from so far off of it. One more question on Sandman, and this one's a bit of a silly one, but obviously the 17 post with obviously they have the new gate and everything, but there's never been a winner from post 17. Do you take any of that into account? And then that'll kind of transition me to ask about Steve Asmussen and his two runners, both of who I think are really talented, but obviously he's also never won it. Do you put any weight into those stats?
I don't think so. Not really. I think some of it does have to do with circumstance. And at the end of the day, whether he's breaking from 16, 18, 17, I don't think it makes much of a difference there. I think that, especially with a horse like him, he's basically going. I would think Jose Ortiz riding this horse, as much as he's a little bit of a quirky horse, I'd imagine he's not that difficult to ride in the early stages of a race, because it's very much break out of the gate, get position, and get him in a good rhythm. You can be laying 4 lengths off the lead or 10 lengths off the lead. It doesn't really matter with a horse like him. It's just about getting him in a good rhythm. So with that in mind, I mean, if he was breaking inside, I'd be concerned with all that dirt coming back in his face, because he's a bit of a green horse. Maybe might not take to that. But being outside, I think, is a little better for him. And regardless, he's going to tuck over. There's going to be some pace. He's going to get over and into the first turn. He'll be running in midfield, maybe even 13th, 14th. And if B, as long as he's in a good rhythm, I think that's what really matters, not necessarily the post.
Agreed. Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to see, horse players at times can be superstitious. So I wanted to see if maybe that played any sort of a factor. So I'll go to post 13 and 14 as we'll kind of stick on that same kind of stat line of the Ophir. But these two horses, I think, obviously his horse Epicenter a few years ago comes to mind with being really talented. But Tistastic and Publisher, Maiden, both of them seem to have a similar running style. Maybe Tistastic will be a tiny bit closer. Did you give a look to either of these throughout your handicapping?
I did, and I think both of them have a real right to run decent. I mean, Publisher's obviously not one you can necessarily trust to win. He's a horse that last time out did not get the jump on Sandman. I will give him that. Sandman was ahead of Publisher, got the jump on him, and that made a difference. I think Publisher's a great use underneath. He's a maiden. People are going to outlook him for that, but he's going to love going this far. He's going to get the right setup, and he's going to be running on. And I think really they're both sort of the same type of horse, because I think both horses are horses that want distance. Even Publisher, who can run effectively, going a mile and a 16th. You look at some of those horses he finished behind, though. Coal Battle, who I think is better at a mile and a 16th. Speed King, Matticat Road. Those are all types of horses. Even American Promise, who has a lot more speed than Publisher. They're all types of horses that can kick on and sort of get away from a horse like this, who's more of a sit-off, make a run, and with more ground, he keeps getting better as the race gets longer. And I think we saw that in the Arkansas Derby. Again, I can't trust him to win, but I think if he outruns his odds and even hits the board, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think the same deals with Tistastic. I think both of them have very similar running styles. And Steve Asmussen has noted it already that the only reason he won the Louisiana Derby was because of the distance. If the Louisiana Derby was a mile and a 16th, he probably would have run 4th or 5th. And I agree with that. Got a good pace in there as well. He got things the right way. And who he beat is suspect. Chunk of Gold is going to be a price. Instant Replay. We might see him in the Preakness. We might see him in the Matt Win, but he's not a top 3-year-old. So I actually prefer Publisher a little more than I do Tistastic, the more I thought about it, because I think Publisher, when you look at who he finished behind Sandman, who's going to be the 2nd or 3rd choice, versus Tistastic, who was all out to beat Chunk of Gold, who is going to be the 17th choice. So even though Publisher is a maiden and he's never won, I actually prefer Publisher in a race like this if I were to play either of those two horses.
Thank you for that. That was excellent insight and excellent just kind of breakdown of the analysis there into Publisher's last race, as well as Tistastic with the quote from Asmussen. Last one we'll talk about before I want to hear your long shot has to be the Arkansas story of the Derby, and that is Coal Battle. You obviously got to see this one and call this runner home in 3 winning efforts and 1 third-place finish, a hard-trying third-place finish at that. What are your thoughts on Coal Battle going into the Derby? Obviously, one of the best stories here.
Well, I would love to see him run well. I think anybody would be happy to see it for Lonnie Briley, who's done a really good job with this horse, as good as anybody could. But I do have concerns about the distance. I don't know if he wants to go this far. I agree with Lonnie, 2 things. One, he was very keen early in his race last time. In the Arkansas Derby, he was tugging pretty hard, and I think that hurt his finishing ability a little bit. Juan Vargas moved a little early on him, I thought. And Lonnie said that in an interview, and I agree that he moved a little early in the Arkansas Derby. On the same token, I don't think it would have made a difference. He was running third anyway. So off his last race, do I think he can improve? Lonnie thinks he can. Lonnie says, I'm going to train him a little differently to where maybe he's not as on a hold early in the race. Maybe he's not quite as fresh, and maybe that'll help him finish a little better. But I still just don't think that he's a 1.25 mile type of horse. I think he's better at a mile and a 16th. 1.1 miles might be stretching it a little bit. 1.25 miles seems to be stretching it. So I would love to see him run well, but I have to analyze races with my brain, not my heart. And my brain tells me this isn't the type of race for him personally.
Well, you have the right kind of brain to handicap. Yeah, it's tough sometimes with these these stories that you really want to gravitate towards them, but at the end of the day, you do have to use your brain over your heart when you're handicapping to find the winner of a race like this. You mentioned a little early on when we first got into the Derby, you had a long shot play that you were looking at. Who are you giving that shout to?
I'm going to go with Final Gambit there, number 3. I think he is very much a question mark with regards to his odds. I think there are some people that are saying this horse has no chance. This is crazy. There are other people that he seems like he's turning into a little bit of a wise guy horse. He was what I was saying earlier about a horse that maybe is just going in the right direction. I watched him work on the dirt. Even though his dam was a turf horse, I can't sit here and say that he doesn't have any dirt pedigree because he's by not this time out of a Tappet mare. So with that, obviously Brad Cox has thought maybe this horse was more turfy synthetic. He never tried him on the dirt. But I just really liked his last race. I thought the way he finished was really impressive. I called it Golden Gate for 6 years, so I've seen this all the time with horses that are synthetic specialists, and you really want them to do well on the dirt, and you want to see them show that, and they don't have the kick. Maybe they just don't like it as much. So, yeah, it's a concern, but he's also 30-1 on the morning line, and even if he were 15, 18-1, I don't think that'd be a bad price on him at all for a trainer. Obviously, Brad Cox that knows what he's doing. He knows how to get horses ready for classics. And you've got a horse here really that runs like he can run all day. And I think the light bulbs really turned on with him. So, usually these types, it's funny because I try to beat horses like this all the time when people make these horses wise guy horses. But I thought that last race was very, very good. And I think he is going in the right direction rapidly. He will need to go in the right direction rapidly to have a say in this race. But, he hasn't really run a bad race ever. And every race he's gotten better. So I like him.
He has improved in every race. And his time form figure from last time out, if that's something that you follow with, definitely puts him a lot closer than the 90 buyer does. I think that's an excellent point that you made. And you called it Golden Gate, and you called the win for Rombauer when he won on the synthetic, and he transferred that right over to the Preakness a few weeks later into a win there. So it's certainly something that's been done before. We've seen 2 fills. Obviously, you can mention Rich Strike, who pulled the upset of upsets there. So it's something that can be done. It's something we've seen done. And Final Gambit, I think definitely off that last effort, deserves a look. And I mean, right now you're getting 30-1. I'd imagine it'll settle probably in the 20-ish range as he's kind of gotten some traction here lately, but certainly still a long shot that's going to provide some good value if you think he can step right up. Matt, I want to thank you a ton for taking the time out of your busy week. Before we let you go, is there anybody else on today's card or on Saturday's card rather that has caught your eye?
Well, I'm really excited about the Churchill Downs Stakes. I think that's that race, and also the Derby City Distaff is just an unbelievable race. But let's go to the Churchill Downs because that race is a fun race here. I'm excited to see how Banishing does. This horse, it's like you wait for him to run bad because he's run so hard every single time, and he just hasn't been able to do so. But I'm going to steer somewhere else. I think Mindframe is maybe a horse you try to beat in a race like this. I'm going to pit Mulligan on top, 7-2 for Rudy Brisset. I think this horse off that run when he was second to Locked, who's a sensational router, I think Mulligan is going to get a really good trip in this race. I think Nisos, he's sort of an enigma at this point. It's sort of hard to know exactly where he stands, but it's amazing that he's being entered in this race. So, I think it's a phenomenal race, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how these horses perform in there.
I'm with you. I've looked at this race a few times now. Just, it's one of those that I keep coming back to. I almost need to take breaks here and there with how competitive this race is. Just make some notes, go on to the next one, come back, refresh. Mulligan is absolutely due for one of these wins. He runs really great. He's been the favorite in a handful of grade ones, including the Breeders' Cup Sprint at Del Mar this past fall. He's just due to finish in first. I know he won the Forgo, but again, he's run these good races, so he certainly could round into form, and this could be the spot for him. Yeah, you mentioned Nisos. I just want to mention that one real quick. He is a bit of an enigma. What do you think? And I want to get Jackson and Kaylee's thoughts too on him showing up in this spot of all the spots that he could have.
Well, I think it tells you that he's training really good. I mean, Bob always enters horses based on how they're training. He says it all the time, and it's true. He watches horses train, and he waits until he thinks they're ready. And the ones that are doing good, he enters in races. And he has sort of sounded cautious when talking about this horse. I don't really take trainer quotes too much into consideration when it comes to playing and handicapping, but they also can tell a story. And it seems like he says he wants to stretch this horse out at some point. He says there's not really another race, but I just have a hard time believing a guy like Bob Baffert would run a horse that could potentially be this good and run him in a race like this and get his brains beat in, and then you're just totally left with a horse that lost confidence off a layoff. I just don't think that he would do that unless he thinks this horse is still very, very good, because we all remember how good everybody thought this horse was. But he hasn't run since February of his 3-year-old year. So this is a huge ask. I think if you try to beat him, certainly today's the day. I wouldn't use him on any tickets in terms of betting. I think that he could win, and if he did, he'd be a phenomenal horse. If he wins and beats this field, he's a phenomenal horse. But I don't think he's a great bet at all, and I think that it's a real big ask, no matter how good they think he is, to beat a field like this.
You nailed it on the head there. This is a massive ask to come off of over a year off. But those 3 races they wow you. But I'm with you. You cannot take a wager on him at 4-1. He might even be a little lower than that come post time. Kaylee, I want to throw it out to you. Do you have any thoughts on this race as a whole, or the fact that Nisos is coming back off this extended layoff and is 4-1 on the morning line?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, clearly the horse has to be doing really well in order to be entered here. Definitely not a great bet. I think it's a really tough field, maybe tougher than any of the fields he's really faced, in my opinion. So he's a bit of a play against for me. I think that, on Derby day, Bob wants to get a win, and I don't really like either of his Derby horses. In my opinion, this is the one most likely maybe to win on Derby day, but I am going to play with Mulligan. I think that, this horse is not due, but I think maybe the last 2 races, the mile could have been too long, and I also think 6 furlongs was too short. So this horse runs really good races at this distance and drew really well in this race. So I honestly think Mulligan's the best bet in here.
I like it. Yeah, certainly drew really well. And the 7 furlong distance is certainly what this horse wants to do, as he has never been out of the exact in the 5 tries. Jackson, I'll throw it out to you. What were your thoughts on this race? I know you just said that you were covering long shots within the money. Is there a long shot in this race, or what were your thoughts as a whole?
I picked Banishing. Just real quick on Nisos. I just don't know. Yeah. Like, he's a multiple grade 6 winner. He's not really eligible for anything out there in California. Like, they're not riding allowance races he's eligible for. The next stake race he could possibly run in is Triple Bend the last day of the month. This kind of just seems like this is what he could enter him in, and they're going to ship him out here, and we'll see what happens. So I agree. I think he's a bet against. He'll be shorter than 4-1. I'd be very surprised if you get 4-1 on him. But Banishing is he's way too sharp right now. We keep waiting for him to take a step back. He's doing the opposite. He keeps taking steps forward and getting better and better and better. And I know he's coming back in 2 weeks. I don't care. Run him while they're good. He's obviously very, very good right now. Versatile running style. Cutback should be really to his liking. I like him a lot at 5-1.
He trains too. Like I'm sorry to interrupt. I just David trains them. It's not characteristic of an average training regimen. But he doesn't train them necessarily that hard in the morning. So I think these horses, they can come back quickly for him because of that. He doesn't even always take them out to the track every day. It's just a very uncharacteristic way of training. Does a lot of 3 furlong works. You won't see him go farther than a half. So I think a horse like this, with that in mind, especially with how hard he's been running, he's fit. They haven't needed to do too much with him.
Definitely, yeah. Jackson, you kind of pointed this out or mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you think the cutback is just going to hit this horse pretty much right between the eyes, right? Like has 3 route races now at Oaklawn Park and now gets to cut back to 7 furlongs where this horse is 2 for 2. You think he just has that extra bottom to him and that's going to be enough with his versatile running style?
Yeah, and of course, and maybe it'll speed a tiny bit, but he's a horse that's more than capable of sitting a length or 2 off if he needs to. And there's really not, for being a Grade 1 stakes race, there's really not that much speed. Like there's not a really true a burner in this race where like that horse is just going to set this field on fire. Like there's not really a horse like that in here, so I don't think he'll have too much trouble establishing position from that inside post.
Yeah, I like the pick. I like Banishing. I think that's fantastic value at the 5-1. Matt, if you have the time, I'd love to talk about the Derby City Distaff with you.
Sure, absolutely. Let's talk about it.
All right, let's go into it. Obviously, we're going 7 furlongs this time for the fillies and mares. So, what on the dirt? What did you think about this race? Who stood out to you? You have Scylla running back who scratched out of a race at Keeneland, I would assume, for this spot because that was just a few weeks ago, but drew the rail here. Who stood out to you, and who do you like?
Well, I think Hopion stood out to me. The fact that she was 8-1 stood out farther because there's no way she's going off at that. I mean that's just insane. So let's just chalk it up as to that's not what she's going to go off at. I'm interested to see how Ways and Means does because she's just obviously so talented. And in the Breeders' Cup, I mean, she didn't have any excuses. Like, she got a perfect trip under Flavian and was just 5th best. I know the race sort of fell apart, but if she was good enough, she probably would have won and beat that field that day. So she freshens up here, but comes back off a layoff in a spot that really you look and it's a tough spot. So she's going to have to be ready, but we do know she runs well off of layoffs because first time out, she ran well. So she can run well fresh. And, Chad Brown doesn't work his horses 58 and change mud. So if she did it, she was probably doing it on her own and they really let her roll in the race. I wish Scylla had a little bit of a better post because I thought she was very intriguing. And I also think that Mystic Lake, if she can rebound, is one that maybe on paper doesn't look quite fast enough, but she's rather consistent. For whatever reason, last time out, she didn't show up, but she was also freshening up a little bit. So with that in mind, I think that there are a lot of ways to go. I probably will try to beat Vava. I think her last couple races showed that a hard campaign last year. Maybe she was getting a little sour, a little tired, but off the break here, off her last couple of races, which weren't great, I'm going to try to beat her all together. But I really wish Scylla had a better post, but she's one that I might chase there.
Yeah, no, Scylla has always been uber talented. I've been guilty of chasing her as well. I won't even get Jackson's opinions because I know what his are on Scylla in the Breeders' Cup. So
maybe I
I'm
should
with you.
stay away for his reaction alone.
Score of a lifetime down the drain. Thanks. You can add Vava and Ways and Means to the divorce list too, from the summer.
Gotcha. You've got a lot of girlfriends in here that really just aren't your.
Yeah, I should not be betting this race because there's too many grudges in here to think logically about this race.
Gotcha.
Let's actually go to you, Jackson. What were your thoughts on this race? Since obviously, Matt just mentioned you have a lot of girlfriends in here that have treated you poorly. So where do we end up?
It's a tough race, and I think this is another one where they all kind of there's not much separating some of these favorites from some of these prices in this race. I went towards the outside. My main squeeze just seems like one that keeps improving and is going to get a really good trip in here. I know last time she finished behind a few of these. That was her first start of the year. She actually ran a career top in that race, and horses from this barn typically improve with a start or two. So I won't be surprised at all if you see her take another step forward in here. And again, I just love the post for this horse in a race that they're going to go pretty quick. She's going to be in the clear. She won't have too much trouble from out there. And hopefully she does take that step forward and can come running late at a decent price, I'd have to think.
Yeah, I like the price. I like the fact that she's had runs over this Churchill Downs surface on, both an off and fast track. So if you take that into account, she's won both times. She loves the 7 furlong distance. Great value. And then, you mentioned it. She ran a career best race first off the bench for Mike Maker in the Madison Stakes. So, she could certainly take a step forward to start her 4-year-old year. She's one of the few in the field where, she's come off the layoff and she's shown that she's still ready to run back to the previous form, if not something better. Kaylie, when you looked at this race, who caught your eye? Who are you trying to beat and who are you going to play?
I mean, Ways and Means definitely caught my eye. I know that she really had no excuse in the Breeders' Cup, but hoping that she comes back strong and sharp here. I mean, it's a bit of a question because I guess Dorth Vader is cross-entered to run against Torpedo Anna as well as Taxed, so it will be interesting. And if that number 15 gets in, that's, you know, an AE, that Mott horse, that also brings some more speed into the race as well. And that horse draws to the outside. I think that a horse like Positano Sunset is pretty interesting at 12-1. Definitely ran a big race in the Madison, and one that can kind of come from off the pace as well, with a lot of speed in the race. And you should get a pretty good price on her as well. So I thought the 11 was a bit interesting.
Without a doubt, yeah. Positano Sunset, I was there watching her win the Madison. Leparoux gave a fantastic ride, but more than that, she's improved in her 2 starts off the bench to start her 5-year-old year. So again, another one that could certainly take a step forward, third off the layoff. She loves the 7 furlong distance. And, I know we haven't necessarily mentioned this time, but the 7 furlong, that's that horse for course kind of angle, or the distance specialist, I should say, kind of angle where, it's longer than 6, shorter than a mile, and it really, fits some horses a lot better than others.
Yeah,
those are
real quick. Sorry, guys, not to be rude. I got to take this phone call real quick, but I'll be back as soon as I can. Matt, really good talking to you. Good luck this weekend. Good luck at Oaklawn.
Pleasure to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah, looking forward to the Monmouth meet too, man.
All right.
All right. He's gonna hop on a quick phone call real quick. Matt, thank you again for taking the time to join us. I really appreciate it. Last couple parting thoughts to go to Friday's races. I mentioned it maybe looks a little bit chalky, but you do have those star-studded horses. So first, I'll start with the Ali Sheba Stakes. You have Locked, who just romped in the Santa Anita Handicap, and then you have facing off with the horse who arguably or definitively ran the best race in the Breeders' Cup Classic, even though it resulted in a loss in Fierceness, who originally, I guess, was going to run in New York, but they decided to ship down here and enter in the Ali Sheba. Did you have an opinion in that race, or is that one you're just going to watch as a fan of racing and as a fan of good horses?
That's what I'm going to do. I'm probably just going to watch that race. And I would think Locked has a seasoning edge. I don't know if he's better than Fierceness. I think it's really hard to say right now. It's really hard to gauge. But Fierceness ran a heck of a race in the Breeders' Cup. I gained a lot of respect for him, like a lot of people in that race. But Locked has always been pointing for this race. This run here was a bit of an owner decision and sort of a late call. And I just think Locked he's probably the one that's a little more cranked up right now. And he's a good horse. So Fierceness is going to have to show up with his A+ race. And Todd Pletcher can get him to do that. He's as good at anybody as getting horses ready off the layoffs. But my gut tells me maybe this is Locke's day to win again. But I will not be playing it. I would just watch it and enjoy.
Yeah, same. Super talented horse, both of them. But I'm with you. I think, Fierceness probably has bigger goals in mind down the road, as does Locked, but Locked is just in the best form. Kaylee, how did you see the Grade 2 Ali Sheba on Friday?
I'm probably going to be watching for fun as well, especially with those prices. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, though, if Locked does go off as the favorite. I know that's kind of crazy to say, but I mean, looking at recency, I feel like Locked could end up taking more money than Fierceness does. If that's the case and Fierceness is some irresistible price, then maybe I'll bet him. I think that he's a super talented horse, and I don't think that Locked is necessarily better than him either. And I think that I don't know if I'm mistaken, but I saw some video of Rapoli saying that it was Pletcher's decision to send Fierceness, or he thought that maybe it would be better for him. And granted, maybe it is a stepping stone, but regardless, I'm really excited to see him back. And of course, running against a horse like Locked. So
absolutely. Yeah, they faced off in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now as 4-year-olds, they're here making their not seasonal debut just for Fierceness, I guess. But it's one that I'm probably going to watch as just a fan of good horses. But Matt, we had Matt Miller on prior to you, and he is a big tournament player. So that might be a horse if anybody's playing a tournament. It really looks like a 2-horse race. Obviously, you have Hall of Fame in there for Steve Asmussen, who's run similar numbers, but the caliber of horse that Locked and Fierceness is just a step above Hall of Fame. So it might be one where you're able to kind of lock up there. And then the following race, is obviously the Grizzly Bear. It's Torpedo Anna running in the Grade 1 La Troyenne. Matt, you got to see her twice this spring as she started her 4-year-old season at Oaklawn Park. What is it like seeing a horse like that and just the fan interactions and how everything kind of takes place?
It's great. It's being able to watch a champion in the flesh. It's like when you go and see a famous athlete in any sport, just being able to watch them perform what they love to do. And of course, with Hot Springs, Arkansas, because a lot of racing fans. So to be able to see so many people come out here, I know there were a lot of people from out of state that were coming in just to watch her. And, when she was in the post parade, I announced her name and I made sure to pause because I knew that so many people would cheer for her and the whole crowd did. And she was in the winner's circle and the whole crowd cheered for her when she came back before the winner's circle. And then even walking back to the barn area, she got a pretty large ovation. So sounds like Jackson just got off the phone. So
we're good. We're back.
We were just talking about Torpedo Anna and just, how much fun she is, not only to watch, but to be on track, to be able to watch her. And I haven't seen any horse that's really been garnishing the attention of so many folks since Zenyatta, probably. And no disrespect to Flightline, but he didn't really have that like Torpedo Anna did, probably because he didn't run it that much. So, being able to call her races as an announcer was an honor. It was just, it's like your dreams are coming true and you want to be an announcer. You want to call horses like that. So it was a lot of fun. And I think last time out too, on an analyst side of things, I think that there were some folks maybe concerned that she's gotten a little bit slower. Maybe she was all out when Brian Hernandez used the crop. I don't really see that as the case. I think that she's a very smart filly, and I think at this point she's going to do what she needs to do and win. And I think the crop use was simply to keep her interested and make sure that she doesn't maybe fall asleep at the wheel and maybe someone come and tag her late because she's not paying attention. But I think all systems go for her. And I really like that Kenny McPeak's running her back in 3 weeks. She's a filly that really takes everything in stride, takes care of herself well. They don't have to do too much with her. So I love to see him saying, you know what, she's doing great. Let's run her back quick. Why not? She's a fan favorite and she loves what she does. So it was a heck of a time having her here in Hot Springs, and it was exciting because a lot of people came out and enjoyed her.
Yeah, without a doubt. You put that all really nicely. You'd struggle to find a bigger Torpedo Anna fan than the woman above you, Kaylie. Obviously, you'll be excited to watch Torpedo run on Friday. I assume you'll just be watching as a fan of her and all the good that she's done for the sport.
Of course, I love anytime I get to watch her race, whether it's on the TV or up in Saratoga, and it doesn't matter what price she is. I mean, I have like souvenir tickets of her. Every time she runs, I always bet her. She's just, and I also think that last time I agree, she really was not all out at all. That was probably just to keep her focused. She's, like you said, a very smart filly, and she only does what she has to do. And it was probably pretty hard for her not to get bored last time out because there was really no one in there that could hold a torch to her. So hopefully they give her a little bit more of, I don't view it as a challenge, but hopefully it's more fun for her this time around when she has some more horses, like I guess randomized to run up against and Raging Sea. So that should be interesting. But she did smoke Raging Sea in the Breeders' Cup. So, maybe randomized runs a big one, but definitely very excited to watch.
Yeah, she's just one of those that you get excited about. Huge, obviously. A lot of credit goes to Kenny McPeak, both for the training job and for the publicity that he has given her through training workouts, just being so transparent, getting fans to go meet Torpedo. Like, those are the kind of lasting impressions that get fans to, stick with racing and really get involved. And Matt, you mentioned a good point that, this is kind of the most, the biggest superstar in terms of fan attraction since like Zenyatta. And I think a lot of it is because I think fans in general like attract more to probably female horses than male because they tend to run a little bit longer maybe. But also just, the amount of races that Torpedoes run compared to, the likes of Flightline and some others. And then the publicity and everything. It's just been really good for the sport. And it's one of those names you're excited for, not to bet, but just to watch as a fan of racing. I won't get Jackson's thoughts because I know where he stands on the wagering front of things.
It's also a lot to do with aura, like what you guys are talking about. Like, you can have the best horse in the world, but you really can't give them a personality or make them a star and get people to like them. And, you name Zenyatta and Flightline definitely, as good of a horse as he was, he just didn't really have that presence like those two fillies do. So
American Pharaoh had a presence,
definitely.
but he was a Triple Crown winner, and I think he's another one. But
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. I just have to add this, that her work before the Apple Blossom was a little strange in my opinion, because we talked about how effortless she can be sometimes, and there was a little bit of effort there with a high level claiming horse, and who was just, the rider was sitting chilly, and she was sort of, the rider was pumping on her, Robbie Alvarado, who rides her, and I was sort of like, okay, what's going on here? Is she not what she was last year? Was this all by design? But you watch her go in the paddock. I was up in the announcer's booth, and I looked down, and there she was, and I took one look at her and I said, nobody's beating this horse today, because she just was so, like you said, Kaylee, her aura, it was just, she was the alpha female. She knows who she is. She was like, it reminded me of Zenyatta, just a very powerful energy of, I'm the star, I'm a superstar, and I'm ready to do my thing now. And I said, there's no way anybody's going to beat this horse. Any sort of worries I had about that workout were completely gone by the time I took a look at her. And if you're at Churchill Downs, for anybody watching, you'll see that when she goes in the paddock, she's just very animated, but she's not too animated. She's not wasting too much energy, but you're going to see she's going to take command of the areas that she's in when she shows up.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Kaylee.
What's really interesting is that last year in the paddock, like, she used to get a little bit too amped up, and now she's matured a lot, and it almost seems like she could reach even a new dimension this year with just, the mental maturity also hitting another level. So
yeah.
No doubt. Matt, thank you so much for taking all the time that you did. I know we originally said 30 minutes, but we couldn't help but keep talking to you. I really appreciate it. I know you have a busy week coming up, both with the conclusion of Oaklawn and then, of course, the Derby, which I know you are. You'd be hard pressed to find a bigger fan of racing than you, and you get to call the races every day for a living. So thanks so much, Matt, for joining us. Hope to see you this summer at Del Mar, and all the best to you when you go out to Monmouth.
It was great to be on, guys. Enjoy the week, and we'll talk soon. Happy to be on all the time. Love it being on your show, and I love watching it too.
Thank you, Matt. Take care. All the best to you.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Matt.
Take care.
Obviously, Matt Dinerman, fantastic guy. I'm happy he's a recurring guest on our show. The next guest that we have waiting in the wings has not necessarily been a recurring guest on our show. I think this is the first time he's here. But if you're watching on America's Best Racing, he's the host of the show for the most part. Until he passed it off to Jackson and myself for the Saturday show. But, of course, I'm talking about Dan Torsman. Dan, what's going on, man?
What's up, guys? Oh, my God. First of all, I love Matt. Oh, my. And I'm following Matt. That's, insane pressure. I don't know what's up with all that. And Kaylee, what's up? First time on with you. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I am, like the rest of us, I feel like I've just got so many numbers and names in my head. So if I don't actually spit out words, you know why.
It's cool. We shared the desk at Vegas, so I completely understand. And that was with some drink tickets between the two of us. So, I mean, anything was going at that point. But Dan,
there we go.
There we go. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. You'll be out at the Derby, correct?
I am. I fly out tomorrow at 4:00. I get there at 6:30. Our team's there. The whole ABR video team has been on site. I don't know if you checked out ABR on Instagram or TikTok this week, but just so many awesome videos, really just powerful stories. And I try not to do this every year, but I can't help it. I get caught up in the stories. I'm like, oh my God, now I want Will Walden to win with Bless the Broken. I need, it's like, oh yeah, I want all these people to win. And I just gotta focus on this, right? I've got to my bets have to be actually based on data and replays and the usual stuff we do.
I love that piece that you guys put out on that filly.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that was really. If you guys haven't seen it, seriously, box of tissues nearby. It's emotional. It really is. It's really powerful stuff. So,
but that's great for the sport of racing. It's good to get your emotions involved. It's great for fan interaction, retainment, everything like that. What it's not good for is the wagering, because we got to put our handicapping caps on, and we got to really get down to the
unless she wins. If she wins, maybe that's the only reason we bet her in the first place.
Maybe I'm only handicapping with my heart if Bless the Broken wins on Friday. I'll throw all past performances out the window. But at least for the time being, we will talk about the past performances. And let's start with the Oaks. Let's start with Bless the Broken, who I definitely think is a very live long shot in there, especially if, the track maybe has some moisture. But even if not, that last win on synthetic certainly stands out as one of her career best. Dan, we got 14 horses going in there. Did anyone stand out? You don't need to give official picks or anything, but it looks like the pace is going to be certainly honest. So how did you see that playing out? And then who kind of, stood out to you?
Yeah, I think I probably have a similar takeaway in terms of sizing up the field from a pace perspective. I think that there's a good bit of speed. I don't think it's as loaded with speed as the Derby is, but I think there's good speed. And unlike the Derby, I think there's a lot of pace drawn to the outside. And so you got to factor that in, especially going to the first turn. You got a couple of nice horses, Quiet Side being, sort of the one who has, is not a need the lead type, but is someone who's usually forwardly placed. Now what is she going to do, right? I mean, she's in a tough post. Like, I can't see her overcoming that. I've heard a lot of people make a case for her. I think, don't you like her, Ryan?
Quiet Side, my excellent co-host Kaylie likes Quiet Side. I like her a little bit as well. I think she's very talented, but I know it's Kaylie's top pick, so I can't take any of the top pick credits for that one.
No doubt. Look, Good Cheer, the horse that you're on here, I think is the one that makes the most sense on paper. Kayla, how did you see? And I'm sorry, I'm reverting back to like host.
Oh, go for it, man.
Host voice here. How did you see? Like, what is the trip you're envisioning for Quiet Side? And do you think it doesn't matter? She's just so much better than the rest of these.
I don't think it's necessarily that, but I think that she's improving with every start, and she's really improving at the right time. I mean, if you're looking at Good Cheer, she's 6-5 on the morning line. She's definitely going to be on my pick fives. I don't want to, get out from this horse winning, but she doesn't have any sort of edge over Quiet Side. That's really the way I view it. Quiet Side ran the same figure last time out, and that was a big step up for her. And also, Quiet Side, that was only the second time she was ridden by Jose Ortiz. The start before that was the Grade 3 Honeybee. She won both of them with him aboard. I think that she's going to be able to clear all the horses to her inside, besides when it gets to 5G. And then you're probably going to have 5G and Lacara, as well as Simply Joking up front. If she can stalk the pace right off of 2 or 3 of those, I think that she's going to sit a really nice trip. And, she's going to get involved early and just right off of, the speed. And that's the ideal trip and how she wins. So I actually really like the draw for her.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, look, I think you're going to get, if she was drawn like the 6 post, she'd probably be like 4-1, 5-1.
Yeah.
So, you're going to get a better price. So, I respect that. Yeah, I mean, the way I looked at this race, I thought, it was going to be, fairly hot pace. Simply Joking is one that I don't know. I'm kind of like in between with that one. Horse won from off the pace sprinting on debut. Maybe Simply Joking takes back and then, tries to work out a trip from there. The horse was very gutsy, right? It was battling Quiet Side to the wire in the fantasy. So, I could see her, being there. Giroux's in this spot. I think he's won this race twice, right? So, I mean, you got the right jock for what it's worth there. I landed on some crazy horses. I mean, I don't know if you want me to jump into. I landed on some just absurd horses.
Jump into it.
I mean, my pick is Quick Kick.
Okay.
If you're
this
looking
is the
at
one
buyers,
horse we haven't talked about that I was hoping someone would mention. So I'm happy you brought this one up. Go ahead.
Good. All right. Yeah. So look, again, I'm imagining a lightning fast pace. This filly was second in the Darley Alcibiades last year, third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Forgot about her for a little while. I think she's run a couple of sneaky good races this year. You're looking at the PPs right here and what are you talking about, right? She finished 4th and 5th, but watch those replays. Fairground Oaks on a speed favoring track. No one else closed from the back, but she made a nice little move to work her way into 4th, and finished up in a way where visually it was okay, she could run a mile and a half. She's good. She finished strong. It wasn't like she was passing tired horses and just kind of moving at an even pace. She was actually running, which I think visually means something when you're looking for a horse who could make this distance. The Honeybee, same thing. I think she made the best sustained move from off the pace, finished 5th, speed favoring track again. The top 4 finishers, watch that race beginning to end. If they ran 1 through 4 all the way around, no movement. It was just super slow. The only horse who closed from off the pace was Quick Kick. I just think this race sets up differently. The pace will be hotter. She's got to jump up, right? Those buyers, she's got to do something about them. I think she's peaking at what, like high 70s, right? I mean, she's got to hit mid 90s. Yeah, she's got to do at least low to mid 90s, right? So she's got to take a big step forward. But I think if given pace, and if she stays out of trouble, I think there's a shot here. I also like Tom Amos. His last Kentucky Oaks runner was Serengeti Empress in 2019. Mm-hmm. She won. Hasn't had a runner in the race since. I think this is not Serengeti Empress by any stretch of the imagination in terms of accomplishment or running style, right? Remember, she was like very much, a front runner. So, it's a different kind of horse. But for me, I guess I approach these races, both the Oaks and the Derby. A lot of people will be like, well, look, I'm on journalism because journalism is the best horse, or I'm on Good Cheer because Good Cheer. Okay, good. We know that. I'm trying to find that horse that I could key in a trifecta who's just a ridiculous price. And then I could sort of build around that horse with horses who logically should be there. A horse like a journalism or a Good Cheer who I think, barring some issues, should hit the board. And then who are the other long shots who I think, given the pace setup, will close and sort of either clunk up or just move past tiring horses based on their pedigree. And, I think Quick Kick is one who should be there. Like, I would be shocked if Quick Kick doesn't finish like at least fourth, which, if you're playing supers, I guess that's helpful. But that's what my Quick Kick. And I've got some other crazy long shots, but I'll throw it back to you guys for reaction and set me up for something else.
I mean, yeah, real quick on Quick Kick. If Good Cheer in this race does not run her best race, or the pace is too hot and she's too close to it, it could go a number of different ways. At least Quick Kick is still consistently closing. It could be one of those where, you get the buyer jump up just purely on the race completely falls apart. I could certainly see that scenario, especially with 3-year-old fillies. We see chaos all the time. Jackson, Kaylie, I'll throw it out to you. Did either of you guys give a look at Quick Kick, whether it was on top or underneath? Kaylie, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I gave her a really long look, and I ultimately landed on a horse that I think could be picking up pieces at the end. Take Charge Milady, who's 12-1 on the morning line. Granted, I know it's, half the price, and she had an abscess leading up, but she looked really good today. And Kenny is planning on sending her, so I'm excited to see her. But Quick Kick is one that I really loved out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Like, I loved her, and I thought that she was going to really improve as a 3-year-old. We just really haven't seen that. 2 starts at 3. She still has every opportunity to improve, and she's surely going to get the pace to run into, similar to what she did in the Breeders' Cup, which I thought was her best race, even though it might not be her best figure. She made up a lot of ground that day. So with some pace, it should help her out. But she wasn't one that I included, but she's pretty logical in terms of the dynamics.
No doubt. She certainly ran a great race in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies, and she just hasn't gotten those setups in the 2 starts this year, but at least you've seen the buyer improvement from start to start. So she could be coming in here ready for a career best. I mean, if she jumped up 7 from her first start to her second. If she jumps up another 7, that puts her around 86. I mean, that by no means can't win this race. If there's, a pace meltdown, or if it just not everybody runs their A effort. Jackson, do you have any thoughts on Quick Kick in terms of a long shot play in the Kentucky Oaks?
No, I don't hate it at all. I mean, this thing could very easily fall apart. And when we're talking about a stone cold 1-run closer, she doesn't need to run a 95 to win this thing, because if she wins, it's because they do go that fast and they all come back to her. She does need to get a little faster than what she's been doing lately, but like you said, I think 86 is probably what she needs. If this thing does come apart, she needs help up front, of course, but she's 30-1. And if I'm looking at her form compared to a horse like the 6, who's going to be a third of the price, I'm not really seeing very much of a difference at all. And they're kind of the exact same style, exact same late pace figures. Like, I can very much see the case on the 5 as a big long shot.
Yeah, without a doubt. You mentioned a great point. Yeah, this race could very easily fall apart. There's a ton of pace. If they just heat things up early, you have a horse like the 12 Anna's Promise, who also likes to be forward. That could be one that just pushes those front runners too. I could easily see this thing falling apart, and it would just be kind of up to Good Cheer if she's good enough to hold on that entire length of the stretch, or maybe not. Dan, I'm throwing it back out to you. You said you had another crazy long shot, so throw it our way. We're ready for it.
I do, but I've got one question first. Jackson, are you a Pirates fan, or is that just kind of a cool hat?
It's a Puma hat
Oh, it's
Ricky
a Puma
Fowler.
hat.
Ricky Fowler.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I missed that entirely.
No, I am
It looks
annoyed at
just
the
like a
Pirates.
Pirates hat.
The Pirates swept the Angels, I think, and the Angels are terrible. And the Pirates aren't that great either. So what does that say about my team?
Did I see Mike Trout has 9 home runs and is batting like 140?
Yeah, he either hits a home run or strikes out, and that's kind of sad. But at least he's healthy, so I guess there's that.
So sad. Do you think he's cooked? Do you think he's washed? It's over?
I don't think he'll ever be the MVP. He was, a few years back, but I think he could turn around a little bit. He's just hasn't played very much, so I give him a little bit more time before I call it quits on him.
Yeah. At least he's been healthy. Yeah, first off, exactly. Well, look, I do want to mention before I get to another long shot. I do want to mention Take Charge Milady. When I initially handicapped the race, that was my pick. So, Kaylee, you mentioned that horse. I think if you look at the Ashland, she found herself a little further back than she usually is, and had to wait for running room on the rail. Several horses were vying for the lead, and then they backed up into her, so she had to kind of slow down and then pick it back up again. I really love the way she finished there. Very impressive. The Honeybee I have no real excuse for. I mean, it was like, I think there's a note, and I did watch the race. It said she was tight at the start.
A little bit of trouble, but
yeah.
I mean, she still ran not at all.
Yeah, it was kind of a no-show. So I didn't really understand that one. And then I was concerned about the foot issue, the abscess, but I was on with Christina Blacker yesterday, and she kind of explained how these abscesses work. She explained it sort of like a hangnail, which I didn't know that was, sort of the comparison. And she was saying it's one of those things that can either easily be corrected, or it can be one of those things that's just constantly nagging you and just annoying, but nothing from realistically run the race. And it shouldn't really get in her way, right? She should make it through a race, and if she's good enough, she should still run her race was the sort of the way she explained it to me. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to like here. In terms of the closers, I think I'm between Quick Kick and Take Charge Milady. And this is not a big price. My third horse in this is Tenma. She's been in, just like the California horses that we were going to talk about in the Derby. She's been in a bunch of smaller fields. Her last 2 races were against 3-horse field and a 5-horse field. But she looks like she can run all day. And I think what's interesting here, and we'll know earlier in the card too, kind of seeing how the Bafferts run. I am curious, right? Are we going to see the Baffert efforts when Baffert is shipped to Triple Crown races and venues in the past where they just kind of, run these massive races and they perform in a way where it doesn't really matter? Or are we going to see something different? So look, setting everything else aside, I think this horse, based on what she's done, has the ability to sit that perfect, just off the 2 pace setters kind of trip. The one that, I think, Kaylee, you're probably envisioning for Quiet Side. I think Tenma can do that, and I think she could be right there, and I think she could be dangerous if she runs the way I think she could run. And, but again, I think we'll know early, and if she doesn't run, then everyone is going to be off the Bafferts on Saturday. You know how it's going to go, right?
100%. And it's true. We had similar opinions here. I like Tenma to surprise a little bit. I get that the 2-back effort was against 2 other fillies in there, but the number was still the number. Yeah, she didn't face anything of any real quality, I guess. But then just moving forward, at least she won in the Santa Anita Oaks and is going to come in here in good form. She should sit in a similar position to Good Cheer. And if you go back to the 2-back number, again, field size not in question here. She ran a very similar number. And again, Good Cheer doesn't, stand head and shoulders above the rest of this field. And then real quick on Take Charge Milady, that was also my top pick in here. And then the hours later, it was the abscess tweet about the hangnail. And so much needs to go perfect the week of the Oaks and Derby that if you throw off the training schedule by a day, the horses are such creatures of habit that gives me cause for pause. I'm probably not going to take anything 12-1 or under. It's probably going to be a play on the side type of a deal, but that Take Charge Milady just terrifies me because coming into the race, it looks like the pace scenario is going to set up for her great. She's obviously coming in really well. Kenny McPeak, or the old McDouble, as his chain said last night. He clearly knows how to win this race. So
Did
I
he
thought
have
Take Charge.
a chain saying that?
Yeah. If you haven't seen the dinner from last night,
so
you got to go watch it. No spoilers, but he did 2 moves that were just incredible.
And he either shaved his chest and used Mike Ivarone's tanning Ferrari, or he actually is just naturally that tan and hairless, which is also impressive.
Yeah, either way, it's impressive nonetheless. But that came after his coach impression as well of him dressing up like Dwayne. So Kenny McPeak obviously having a ton of fun, but this is a real runner. And you toss the Honeybee effort, I'm willing to scratch a line through that. She clearly came back in the Ashland really well. Lacara had a pretty nice trip that day, just on the lead. Yes, she went fast, but the mile and a 16th at Keeneland, the first wire finish, we all know that favors speed. That's no secret. Churchill Downs going a mile and an eighth does not favor speed necessarily, especially in a race like this, loaded with it. I thought Take Charge Milady galloped out really nicely last time out, and she could certainly fit in here. The cause for pause was just on that abscess, but
yeah, and she did miss a work because of the abscess, but
exactly. That's,
I guess, the only thing that's a little iffy, but I certainly like her better than Lacara. So.
Definitely.
If there's, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, she's just that dark horse now. You have the question mark with the missed work and, that couple day delay. And now you assume the one work was just going to be a maintenance drill over the track, but still it's just that routine got thrown off right before a huge race. So go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if there is a horse, who might wire this field. I mean, I have the horse in mind, but I'm curious to hear who you all think could be that one horse who could get to the front and just go all the way.
Jackson, I'll go to you first. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kaylee.
No. It's okay.
All right.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
I do think it is Lacara. I don't really, to take Ryan's favorite angle in horse racing, I don't see the two getting the distance because I don't see her getting distance because of what I've seen on the tape. Ryan just thinks every single practical joke. The horse cannot go 2 turns. Flightline could have been bred by practical joke, and he's still be claiming that the horse could not go 2 turns. So
he wouldn't be 6 for 6. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
I just feel like a 7 has to go. Like, that's the one horse I'm most confident is going to be on the lead and will get the distance. Whereas, like, Quiet Side, I could see her taking back just a little bit just from that post trying to stalk. And then if maybe the 12 can't get over as quickly as they want to, and maybe the 7 just gets another easy-ish lead. They're going to go fast, obviously, but I'm not going to use her at all by any means, but I do think if there is someone that wires this field, I think it would be her.
I'm in agreement. I think she went fast last time, and if she really she'd have to go even faster early, but I think if there was a horse that needs to go to the lead, it is Lacara. Kaylee, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not crazy about Lacara. I think that last work was a lot as well. Right before you come into this race, I think that 5G to her outside is a little bit of a threat for Lacara getting the lead. I don't really have a lot of faith in the 2 either to get the distance. Certainly, if she was going to get that distance, it would be if she had an easy lead up front. And I just don't see that happening when you have so many speed horses to the outside. But out of all of them, I prefer 5G. She definitely surprised me in the Gulfstream Park Oaks last time out. I know that, she won in Gates Wire fashion, which I don't see happening. But yeah, and she also came off the pace in the cash run to win by 9. I think she's a bit interesting out of the 3 speed horses.
Definitely. Dan, who's the horse you had in mind that could wire the field?
I'm with Kaylee. I think 5G scares me a little bit. I could see 5G doing something crazy, just going like 46 and 2 to the half, and kind of opening up maybe a length lead and just getting a little bit of daylight and getting confident on the front end. And there is, as Kaylee mentioned, she sat off slightly on a couple of occasions, but I think her game is to go. She's just outside of Lacara. And I think Lacara, even though Lacara, won the Ashland on the front end, it doesn't make sense. First of all, I don't think she's as fast as 5G. And I don't think it's going to make sense for her to get involved with, when there are horses who are outside and inside going. It makes more sense for her to just take back slightly. So that's the way I'm envisioning it playing out, at least. So I think 5G is the scary one. Now I have one other question for y'all, and that's it. I promised my last question about the Oaks.
Ask away, brother.
What do you make of the Virginia Oaks horses? I watched that replay, and I know the horse on the front end kind of tired, and they went by that horse. But Fondly is just, I don't know, just intriguing to me. I don't know if it's just Grand Motion, and I'm like, he doesn't, he wouldn't put a horse in this spot unless he thought the horse was good enough. But that horse there's something about her, like, the clips, the connections, like it's all like, this is a quality horse. I just don't know, like, is it too early for her? So I don't know. What do you think?
She has the right run style. I think Howard Kravets on our show yesterday mentioned it well. I think this is a summer horse to look forward to. I think she's still kind of on the improve. She's still kind of building up to like the best she can be. But I mean, she's 2 for 2 to start her career. She drew really well in here. And yeah, Brendan Walsh, he can be aggressive with the placing at times, but she's gotten better. She fits, again, run style wise for how the race looks to set up. So maybe she can surprise. She takes a huge step forward. I mean, she could certainly be a factor in the tries and supers, maybe. Kaylee, any thoughts?
Yeah, to me, I think that she could be a factor in tries and supers. There's 2 win candidates in this race for me, and it's quiet side and it's good cheer. But Fondly is definitely an interesting one, especially Grand Motion, like you said, isn't usually that aggressive. Clearly, this horse has a lot of potential to move her into stakes company, listed stakes company right off that maiden win. And what's nice about her, she came from off the pace and, her maiden, and then also she broke on top in the Virginia Oaks. I know that he took her to his training center after the Virginia Oaks, and she actually looked a bit more muscular, in my opinion. I saw her at Churchill Downs, like one of the first days that she shipped in, and I didn't really like the way she looked the first time I saw her. But then as I kept watching her over the days, I actually found myself kind of liking her a little bit. I don't think that she's a win contender, but I think that, she is an interesting horse and she has every right to improve. And clearly Irad's still into her as well. So something.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I think I said Brendan Walsh. I definitely meant Grand Motion. So thank you for that. I definitely misspoke.
So you were in the right.
Let's move on to the Derby.
Vicinity. You were in the right ballpark.
Yeah,
we knew what you were saying.
The guy next to me loves him some Grand Motion horses, so I should have been on top of that. But let's dive into the Kentucky Derby. I don't want to run out of time here with you, Dan. So let's get right into it. Who stood off the page to you? A lot of the pace seems to be drawn to the inside. It's really tough to get past the favorite in journalism, regardless of the field sizes he's faced out west. He's done everything the right way. How do you bet the Derby? And then who stood out to you here in terms of value and bets?
I'm getting past the favorite. I can tell you that much. I didn't wait all year for the Derby to pick the favorite. So I am 100% getting past journalism. Look, I've said this a couple of times this week when people have asked me, who did you land on for the Derby? Who are you landing on? I'm like, I'll be honest with you. I went in with a couple of thoughts, which was journalism is probably the best horse. Sovereignty, we've thought for a while is a pretty serious horse. Sandman, we've got the personal connection to through America's Best Racing and Griffin and all that. And that was it. And like, I'd watched all these preps when they happened, and I was like, I don't think anyone else stood out to me. And then I handicapped, and then 2 horses appeared to me, and I'm like, am I really going to say these names like in public? Am I going to say that I've landed on these 2 horses? And the 2 horses that I landed on are Publisher and Final Gambit. So I know. Hold your applause.
Let's go to Final Gambit first.
You're like, all right, let's warm up with Final Gambit. So, I mean, look, this is totally a visual play for me. First of all, the Ruby is a race that I've kind of laughed off for years. But then, it was the Spiral or whatever it was before that. And I'm like, yeah, these horses can't run. Animal Kingdom was a fluke. In my mind, I'm like, all right, that race I'm not going to pay too much attention to. But then, you've got past couple of years, I mean, you've got horses who are coming out of that race. And even if they don't win the Derby, like Seize the Gray finished 3rd in the Ruby, came back, won the Preakness. 2 Phils obviously won the Ruby and then was 2nd in the Derby. Rich Strike was 3rd in the Ruby and then won the Derby in 2022. Even Tawnyport and Tis the Bomb, they finished like respectably. I think they were like 7th and 9th or something in the Derby. They ran decent races. Like those horses run. I don't know what it is, if it's like the timing, the spacing on the calendar, or, if it's easy points. So people kind of write it off. They're like, well, these are probably mostly turf horses, so people overlook them. But that race has been good. Like it hasn't been bad. And so, yeah, I mean, I just watched the Ruby. I was like, look, should I even watch this race? I honestly considered not even watching. I'm like, am I going to watch the replay of the Ruby? Like, what am I doing? I'm just wasting 2 minutes of my, like, this is stupid. But I watched it, and like, you cannot watch that race. And I know they went fast. I know, the horse on the front end just stopped running and all of it. But the way Final Gambit does it is just so impressive. First of all, he gets absolutely crushed at the start. I mean, he gets wiped out, right? He settles in last, and you're like, all right, well, I mean, you're not even paying attention to the horse at that point. And, you watch the stretch run, and he just kind of sweeps by them with ease. And he could have won. I don't know what the margin of victory was. What was it? 3.5? He could have won by 10 lengths, right? Yeah, he could have won by 10 lengths. If he started moving a little bit earlier, he would have won by 10 lengths. That was his first time going a mile and eighth. Loved every bit of it. The pedigree doesn't in any way preclude him from running on the dirt. Not this time out of a Tappet mare. And I think Christine on our show yesterday said that the dam actually won on the dirt or has produced other dirt winners. So there is some dirt in that family, in addition to it obviously being a Tappet, right? Like a Tappet mare and not this time who can win on anything. So, Cox, Judmont, like all of these things just come together. And to me, the pace is going to be hot. This horse, I think, now, again, it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen, but let's just assume everyone breaks somewhat cleanly. Citizen Bull, Neo Equus to his inside, Rodriguez, American Promise, and Meyer Daytona to his outside. Whoosh. 5 horses in front of him, jockeying for position, near on the lead, sits on the rail, saves all the ground in the world, probably drops back about, if I'm guessing, if they're going to be going fast, he's going to drop back about, 6 to 8 lengths at a minimum behind them, but should save ground. And look, from there, good luck, Luan Machado. Make us proud, Luan. If you could find a way, if you can find a path, or maybe just stick to that rail because it always opens up at some point, Final Gambit's going to make a big run. Final Gambit will not finish worse than 5th in this Kentucky Derby. Mark it down. I don't care what the odds are. Final Gambit finishes in the top 5, and I'm going to bet, exactas all day with Final Gambit.
I like it. Certainly one with a shot. You made a great case with the pace scenario, setting up to allow this one to get down to the rail. Publisher, I believe, was the other one that you said you landed on, if I'm not mistaken, or it might have been the other Asmussen. But quickly touch on this one. Would love to hear your thoughts on the maiden inverse the 19 other winners in this race in the Derby.
Wait,
that wasn't shade. That wasn't shade. That wasn't shade.
Sure, it was shade, but I was hoping one of you would drag me on Final Gambit, like drag me for Final Gambit. Nobody wants to take a shot at Final Gambit.
Hey,
I'm gonna use them in supers.
Yeah, he's a very usable horse. I don't disagree at all.
I covered him in the money like 3 weeks ago. Way before, he's kind of become a wise guy. This is a few weeks ago when he still had he had Tapan Street still. He still had Blood Zone was kind of still in the mix. And I think he had another horse, and I had kind of said like, if they like the way he's working on the dirt and they still enter him against his better horses in his race, like he has to be able to take to the dirt. Like Cox is not the type to enter a 30-1 shot. He likes being 6-5 in these races and having a high win percentage. And he obviously must be doing really, really well. So I don't hate it at all.
Yeah. Lots of horses have come out of the Ruby with only like all weather and turf tries, and they've run well in the Derby. So I'm good with it. I think this horse's pedigree, it's not like, it's, like all turf, right? So like and they just take like the connections now on the 11, right? Where that is pretty much all turf pedigree, Flying Mohawk.
Right.
But I think even that horse, like if I like Final Gambit, I've got to like Flying Mohawk just a little bit. I think way, way, way underneath, I might use Flying Mohawk, but I don't like that horse nearly as much as Final Gambit. So anyway, Publisher, Publisher, I don't know that he was catching Sandman in the Arkansas Derby, but I do think that move, where Sandman sort of lugs out, gets like the left-handed whip and just kind of, moves out a little bit into Publisher's way, definitely slowed the horse's momentum down. This horse is just kind of taking those steps, right? Climbing steadily, right? 86, 95. Is there another step? I think there is. The Rebel was an impressive race, was bumped and squeezed coming out of the gate, got sandwiched between a couple of horses late when he was able to split, really took off nicely. And the Southwest also visually, like Where did he finish in the Southwest? 5th or 6th, 7th? Oh, well, 7th moved up to 6th via DQ. Watch that race. Like 2 more excuses there. Bumped out of the gate, and then American Promise in front of him is tiring. Kind of, basically like leans into the rail as he's making this nice move up the rail. Totally shuts him off. He checks bad, stumbles, has to go around horses, and so easily you could be looking at lines here where in the Southwest he finished 3rd, and in the Rebel he finished, he finished 2nd. You could look and it could be, oh wow, this horse has been there every race. But what you see is that he finished 6th and that he finished 4th, and then he just wasn't as good as Sandman. But I think if you watch those replays, there's a lot more there. And so Publisher, I think, is taking the right step. I said this to one of my friends who was texting me, who's giving me crap about picking Publisher because he heard me mention Publisher the other day. And he was like, dude, you're picking the maiden? I was like, listen, would it have made a difference if he won a maiden special weight at Ellis last summer? Like, would you feel better about him? Like, would that have made all the difference in the world, right? Like, it doesn't matter that he's a maiden. Like, we've seen what he can do. He was a couple of lengths off Sandman after Sandman came out on him. So, like, if Sandman's going to be 6-1 or 5-1, how do I not like Publisher at 25-1?
Yeah, without a doubt.
I like that point. If he had won an $8,000 claimer at Gulfstream back in August, would that be the difference maker between liking him in the Derby or not because he's a maiden? I don't know.
Right?
I don't hate that pick at all. I think it makes a ton of sense. The horse has the right run style. He's been chasing some fast paces. He's probably going to get another one, and that horse is bred to run all day. Obviously out of a Triple Crown winner, but just overall bred to run, has the right run style. So I like those 2 long shots, Dan, but more importantly, I thank you for joining us. That was a ton of fun. Obviously, go ahead.
I am not letting you get rid of me just yet.
Okay. I got two other guests. I
can tell by the way you're rushing me up that you got people in the waiting room. Guys, trust me, if you're in the waiting room, listen to this and take note. There's a horse that will not lose on Friday.
Oh, here we go.
Sheba, 6th race, 5, most wanted. It's going to wire that field.
Wow.
Yeah, just single on everything. Most wanted. The 5 horse in the Ali Sheba.
We will be live on Naira Bets for that 24-hour live stream. So that's a good mic drop. I'll make sure to hold you to that.
Thank you guys. You're doing an amazing job. All of you. Love you guys. Good luck. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you a ton.
Have fun at the Derby, man.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, have fun out there. Have some drinks for us.
Oh yeah, I will.
All right, that was Dan Tordjman, obviously. Great guy. He said most wanted is beating Locked and Fierceness and Hall of Fame. I love it. Our next 2 guests are waiting.
Final Gambit top 5 guarantee pick too.
He has 2. He gave out 2 guarantees. So I'm waiting to see. If he's right on one of those, that's going to be nice. Although I think Final Gambit in the top 5 is a little more likely than most wanted, but I'm excited either way. Our next 2 guests, first of whom I will bring on, obviously, Jackson, you and I co-host on his channel. We've been on a number of his Derby and Oak shows. We co-host Pacific Horse Players. For HHH Racing, it is Howard Kravets. Howard, what's going on?
Hey, guys. How are we doing? Happy Derby time. What's going on?
Happy Derby time. We're keeping it fast and furious, just keeping the guests going, but it's been an excellent show. And that'll lead me right into our next guest. I know you've seen him on FanDuel TV. You've seen him on NBC. Friend of Howard Kravets, friend of the show. It is Matt Bernier. Matt, how are you doing? Thank you for finding the time to join us.
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me. Let me know if my connection is no good. Hotel Wi-Fi is always dodgy, so if I need to hop onto the old hotspot, let me know.
You look clear as day right now, so no notes as it stands. So, thank you both for joining us. We'll get right into it. Let's dive into the Kentucky Oaks. Let's just talk about, obviously, 14-horse deep field. Pace scenario looks like it's hot. There's a few horses that definitely need to be forwardly placed. Matt, I'll go to you first. How did you see the kind of pace scenario playing out? And then how did that affect who you ended up kind of gravitating towards? And did that let you toss anybody in the race?
I agree with the way you kind of laid it out. I think there's a lot of gas in this race. There are a number of fillies that, even if they've proven themselves from slightly off the pace, they all want to be forwardly placed. And I think that just kind of plays into the hands of good cheer in a spot like this, where I keep going back and forth. I was on with Howard 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, he and Paul and Pete, and I had said, I just think good cheer is better than everyone else. And I feel like I'm falling into the NFL draft trap of there's so much time where I can go back and second guess my opinions and second guess the thoughts. Just purely on numbers, she's really not that much faster than everyone else. But I still think she's probably better than everyone. That doesn't make a great deal of sense. I'm not saying she's a good bet at 6 to 5 or even money, but I think you kind of have to use her. Having said that, there is a filly, and I mentioned with those guys the other night that while Lakara is probably up against it a little bit from a pace dynamic standpoint, because it sounds like Mark Casse is intent on going. She's at least proven herself over the surface at Churchill Downs. She's proven herself from slightly off of it. If for whatever reason somebody else goes and they decide, if you're Dylan Davis, you know what, too fast, let's sit back and kind of make a run. She would be the other one that I'd be interested in. I know a lot of people like Quiet Side. I can't argue with that. Simply joking, I have reservations about the distance. Lakara would be the one for me. Aside from Good Cheer, they're probably the only two that I'll use. I'll use both of them in the Oaks Derby double. But I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. Good Cheer on paper, you see all the ones on the right side by open lengths. She makes all the sense in the world. She should get the setup. On numbers, on speed figures, she's not that much faster.
I want to throw this out to Howard real quick. Obviously, I need his thoughts. But first, we were talking about a horse that would be the biggest threat to wire, and a couple of us ended up on Lakara, but you seem to think she has maybe her best chance coming from slightly off of it because she's kind of shown that tendency in the past to be able to.
I don't know if I would say that's her best chance. My feeling would be if for whatever reason some other fillies just go gangbusters early on. Mm-hmm. And Dylan Davis says, look, we don't need to go 45. We know that we can sit and still have some kind of finish. Then I still think she has every right to run a big race. If for whatever reason they gift wrap it to her and they let her go 47 to the half, then go on with it, my son.
I like it. All right, Howard, I'll throw it out to you next. What are your thoughts on the race? Obviously, I know we touched on parts of this in yesterday's show on your channel, but let's do it all over again. What stands out to you? Where'd you land on? And what do you like?
Well, first, it's a pleasure to be on with Kaylie. It's the first time I've been on with Kaylie, so great to see you, Kaylie. Would love to get you on the HHH Racing podcast sometime.
Love to. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to meet you. I love the work you do. Look, Matt and I have talked a little bit, off air, and we've talked to a lot of people. Guys, I've done a little bit of a 180 in the last week or two, and I have two reasons why I don't think Good Cheer has to win it all. And I'm going to be playing against her in general. I'm going to use her, in my horizontals, but I don't think she has to win. And I'm going to give two reasons why, and people can feel free to poo-poo it. That's absolutely fine. There's two reasons. Matt already hit on one of them. Matt, I looked at the time form. She's paired up time form figs, Good Cheer, of 110. There's 6 or 7 horses who've run better than 110 in this race. Now, I understand some got loose on the lead. It's all based on scenario, right? But there's a lot of horses in this race that have run as fast or faster than her. Now, if you want to argue, well, Good Cheer's got a lot more in the tank, okay, maybe, but maybe not. So that's one thing that I think is important to mention. The other one, Matt and Jackson and Ryan and Kaylie, that sort of dissuaded me away from this horse. Guys, she's not faced most of these fillies at all. I mean, who has she faced this year? Like, with all due respect, not much. All these speed horses. She's never faced 5G. She's never faced Lakara. She's never faced, I don't think, Simply Joking. She did be Quiet Side by 2. There's a lot of these horses, guys, that she's never even run against. So while visually she looks very impressive, look, Luxor Cafe was unbelievably visually impressive in his last win. But if he's facing a bunch of inferior company, doesn't that make him look a lot better than he really is? That's sort of the vibe I get. Good Cheer is the horse to beat. She can absolutely win. I think 5 or 6 of them can beat her.
Yeah, I certainly think that's fair. Certainly looking at the speed figure advantage. Matt and Howard, I'm curious on both of your takes on this. Is she one of the horses where, again, yeah, she could just kind of look a horse in the eye at the quarter pole and draw off and win for fun again? But is it one of those where she's never been in a fight, so we don't know, what she's gonna do if she looks another horse in the eye, whether it's to her inside or outside, or maybe on both sides? We haven't really seen her in a battle down to the wire yet.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. I mentioned it a few weeks ago, and I heard Randy Moss mention it as well, that there are, if you take a look at her past performances and you compare them to wet paints from 2 years ago, I think, They look very similar, where she just keeps winning, but on the figs, it's not as though there's an overwhelming sort of edge that she has. And then whenever she faced better company, she just didn't cut the mustard. Um, I- is that her, or is she more of a Torpedo Anna, who, with the exception of the Travers and the Distaff to a degree, but the Travers is kind of the one that sticks out like a sore thumb. She doesn't run overly fast, but she just destroys whoever she runs against, and you can't hold it against her, who she does or doesn't face. I guess the same could be said about Good Cheer. It's a very difficult. If you're just trying to identify the likeliest winner, that's one thing. If you're talking about it from a gambling standpoint, it's entirely different, and that's the only thing. If this race were run on a Thursday at Aqueduct, would I sit here and say I love Good Cheer? I mean, under no circumstances. And that's why I keep second guessing myself, saying I'm buying what Brad is telling us, that he doesn't think that they've gotten near the bottom of her. That's a dangerous proposition at a short price.
Well, Matt,
it is a very dangerous.
Matt, we've
ahead,
talked. I mean, that could be a little trainer speak too. Remember, Tom Amos said Hoosier Filly was the best horse he's ever trained, and she's a nice horse. But I mean, so look, I'm not saying Brad is lying. It's just
no. I agree with
mean,
that to a degree, but with the success, and this by no means am I comparing Tom to Brad, but for the fillies that Brad has had recently, for him to be as bullish about this filly and saying that, look, you get her out to 1.1 miles, you're only getting another gear. You get her even farther than that, you're only going to find more. Brad is not. I agree with the premise, Howard, that Brad is not one that's going to just pump tires to pump tires.
Right.
I tend to buy that he doesn't think that we've gotten to the bottom of her, but that's kind of inconsequential, right? Like at the end of the day, your money is your money, and do you want to back her at even money on Friday? Remains to be seen.
Well, and the thing, I'd love to hear what Kaylee has to say, and I obviously just came on, so I'm not sure what you've talked about before, but the other horses that I think are most likely to beat Good Cheer are speed horses, and there's a lot of speed in the race, and that's problematic. I do like Take Charge Milady. I have to admit, I'm a full-time high school math teacher. For people listening and don't know, I don't have an update on how she's looked on the track the last few days. As far as I know, she's going to run. I think Kenny sent out something on X saying this is the best that her hoof has been. I don't know if anyone wants to talk more, because I honestly don't know how she's been the last 2 days. That has been my topic for the last week and a half up till the foot issues.
Yeah, we had Dan on right before you, and we were talking about this situation and how it looks everything's healed. He said that he was speaking with Brittany Urton, and it was or Christina Blacker, and it was basically the hangnail situation, but that's now healed. And our kind of reservations, and Kaylee, please take it from here. But we're basically just like it threw off the routine, and on a week this big, that means that's substantial. But Kaylee, go ahead.
Yeah, she missed a work. I mean, it's not ideal, but she looks really good today. And Kenny said that, they're planning on running her in the Oak. So she definitely is one to consider, at least, in tries and supers for me. I see her as one that's going to be making up some ground late. I thought that last out, she ran better than Lucara did in the Ashland. So I like her. I prefer her to Lucara and a couple of the other speed horses in here. But ultimately, who I landed on and who I believe is really getting overlooked is Quiet Side. I don't see any possibility of her going off at 8-1. I mean, when she steps out on the track, she looks just as good as anyone else. So she should be taking a lot of money, I think, honestly. But you're still going to get a way better price on her than you are on Good Cheer and potentially even Lucara. Good Cheer, she might be that type of filly that really runs to what she has to do. And for that reason, maybe we haven't seen her best yet. But I mean, I'm not going to, take a horse at 6-5 because of the possibility that we haven't seen her best yet. There's really no edge when you're looking at her figures whatsoever. I think that, she strikes me as a special, a little bit of a very competitive filly. And I am going to protect myself by having her on my pick fives. But how I'm playing this is I'm betting Quiet Side to win all day. I think that she's going to get overlooked a lot. She found her match with her rider, Jose Ortiz, in the last two, and she won them. And she's coming into this with the same last out figure as Good Cheer. And I mean, Good Cheer beat Quiet Side when Quiet Side wasn't as good as she is now, and when she didn't have a regular rider on her. So Quiet Side is really interesting to me, and I think she drew well. I see her sitting off of one of the 2 speed horses and sitting a nice trip. So definitely going to play with her.
Real quick, Ryan.
Go ahead, Jackson.
Good cheer points. I disagree with Howard. She beat Quiet Side pretty handily last year as far as who she faced. Quiet Side's his 3rd choice in this race and has beaten a lot of these horses that are contenders in this spot. I don't really buy the whole she hasn't beaten much. Maybe this year she has it, but I think mostly it's because people are avoiding her because they know what she's going to be heading to fairgrounds. And then as far as the question Ryan had, if your biggest critique is this horse hasn't been in a dogfight because she's winning every race by open lengths, like that's a pretty rock solid favorite in my opinion. I mean, she's just destroying these fields.
Yeah, and I know Howard's mentioned this before, but Jackson, when you land on a favorite, that certainly speaks volumes because you're always trying to beat the chalk. So I certainly do look into that a little more. Matt, obviously, I see you, send out pick 5 tickets through the airwaves, and I know you love horizontal plays. Howard, I know you do too. Howard, I know you use the ABC method, or at least you used to. Maybe you still do. But to me, 10 was a solid A for me. So on my main ticket, she's going to be, or I'm not 10, I'm sorry, Good Cheer is going to be the single for me on that. And then on my B and my other tickets, I'll be backing up with, some other horses. But I think she is the most likely winner, at least to my opinion. I know, maybe you don't share the same, but Matt, what are your kind of thoughts on that in terms of, Derby Oaks playing ABC if maybe that's not your typical way of playing?
So if you're playing the double Oaks Derby, I would probably use both the fillies that I had mentioned, Good Cheer and Lacara equally into the horse that we'll talk about in Derby. If you're playing the pick 5 day of, I would probably press up Good Cheer. I don't feel good about it. I mean, it's for everything that we just talked about. Like if it were any other race, and it sounds stupid because I'm kind of contradicting myself. Like on paper, there's nothing that separates her from the rest of the field. But and this is dangerous. I'm probably falling into a trap that I'm buying into what Brad's selling. I'm buying into the idea that 9 furlongs, and if we end up with a little bit of wet weather here on Friday, it's all going to work to her advantage. I'll use her as an A. I'll use Lacara as a B. The pick 6 is probably the 2-day pick 6.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that I'm going to have to make a real call on because the La Troyenne kicks things off. And I mentioned the comparison, like Good Cheer and Torpedo Anna. If you scrub the Travers from Torpedo Anna, she's not that much better than anybody else. But all she does is show up and win. And they're horses I hate to bet on or bet against because I don't have a great deal of confidence one way or the other. But the reality is, if you like her, if you like Good Cheer, and let's say you like journalism, that pick 6, suddenly you can get skinny in those 3 legs and then spread as much as you want in the other 3. So I think you've got some decisions that you need to make. I'm kind of up in the air. As far as the Oaks is concerned, I'm only going to go with Good Cheer, and I'll use a little bit of a backup with Lacara.
I like that a lot. Yeah, that you have your opinion, so might as well press them and see, if you're right or if you're wrong. I'll transition us now into the Kentucky Derby, as I know, Howard, you have a show here in like 13 minutes, so thanks for taking the time to join us here. So I'll go to you first. Give us your thoughts on the Oaks, or the thoughts on the Derby, rather. More importantly, from a wagering perspective. So you let us know who you like, but how do you approach a 20-horse field if you're here to gamble and place a bet?
I feel very similar about the Oaks that I do in the Derby. The Good Cheer and journalism are very I don't know. I think Good Cheer is a more likely winner than journalism, but they're both the best horses in the race. Probably, maybe more than just a little bit. But I still think there's a lot of horses that can win. And in a 20-horse Derby field, there's absolutely no way that I'm betting journalism on the win end at anything less than 3-1, maybe even less than 7-2. In a 20-horse field, I just can't do it. Now, that being said, am I using journalism in every horizontal? I mean, absolutely. I think you'd be silly not to, in my personal opinion. I've been talking about Sovereignty for quite a while. I like Sovereignty. I'm buying into Matt's Burnham Square a little bit more because I really like the work that I saw last time, the 9. And I know people say, well, it's a morning work. When Ian Wilkes' horses work fast and work well, it grabs my attention. And I watched that work visually, was very impressive last time. And I think, even though the Bluegrass was a bit slow, I like the way this horse fights. And I like Brian Hernandez. I'm using him. I'm against Luxor Cafe and Sandman. I know they're very popular horses. And when I say against, I mean on the win end. And I know we don't have time to go through the whole field, but they're going to have to prove it to me. There's way too many question marks. I much prefer to put a horse on top like Rodriguez or Grande, or, I mean, you could even throw, a Final Gambit. You guys are talking about Publisher. There's a lot of horses that are much bigger prices that I would be a lot more interested in. In terms of how to play the race itself, I mean, that's a whole conversation. We had a whole podcast on that on our show. In terms of how I'm playing, I'm going to be playing a 2-day pick six. And I'm absolutely going to be spreading. I'm going to be spreading my main ticket. I'll probably only use journalism and sovereignty on my smaller tickets. And then I'm going to play a superfecta also. I'm able to put a little money together from a group of people. And I'm going to play super, and I can just tell you right now that my plan right now is to put Rodriguez and sovereignty in each spot. So I'm going to key sovereignty and Rodriguez, a little closer, little speed kind of action there in all 4 of my spots, and then use many horses in other legs. So if you want to play the super, ladies and gentlemen, I highly recommend you do that. Pick a horse. You want to be journalism, fine, whatever. Pick a horse, maybe 2 at the most. Key them in each spot. You're saving a lot of money by doing that. The only reason I'm not doing journalism, guys, is because journalism is 5-2, and you're not getting value that way. Your superfecta price goes way down if sovereignty comes first, if journalism comes first or second. And he might, and I'm going to use him in first or second, but not in my biggest tickets. So that's my plan on Derby Day.
I like your plan. I don't for journalism and for the the supers, since it's that dollar minimum, and he's not going to be a 9-5, 8-5 type of favorite. He'll be 5-2 to 7-2 in there. My plan is to key him second, third, and fourth. I do think he's the best horse in the race. I don't think that's much of a debate based on what he's done, even if he's run against some small fields. But the best horse doesn't always win the race. I think there's a handful that could beat him. Kaylee also likes sovereignty in this race. Matt, I hear you like Burnham Square, who is my top pick in the race. So that makes me feel an awful lot better that I feel like I can use those 2 pretty convincingly now, or pretty confidently, I should say. So, yeah, my plan is to key journalism second, third, and fourth, use a bunch in those different spots and just try and create some value that way. Because with the dollar super, it's still going to pay pretty nice. With the, if this was the 10 cent, I'd probably feel a little bit differently. But Matt, what is your approach? What is your approach to the Derby? Whether it's in the end of horizontal wagers or just attacking it head on.
And Ryan, I have to go in just a minute. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, sir.
Everyone.
No worries. Thank you, Howard, for taking the time to join us. I know you have a show coming up.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead, Matt. I'll graciously leave in 30 seconds.
Well, answer this question first. I have a question for all 4 of you. Do you put any stock into the money that's been bet in the win pool right now?
Not a ton, other than I was aware Sandman was going to take a heavy amount of play because of all the publicity that's been going around about him, whether it's Griffin Johnson as the owner, or the fact that Metallica went and gave all of the help and the training staff t-shirts, stuff like. And so, yeah, I figured that horse was going to take a fair amount of play early. Other than that, I'm not putting too much stock into what I see right now.
I would.
My simple answer is no.
Your answer is no. Thanks, Howard.
Thank you, Howard.
I'm sorry. I got to go, everyone. I'm sorry. I got a show in 6 minutes now.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for inviting me, Jackson, Ryan, Kaylee. Great to meet you. I'll be talking to you soon. Matt, a pleasure always. Good luck to everyone on Derby weekend.
Thank you, Howard. You too.
Take care, everyone. All right. Bye-bye.
Just to answer the question, I think I would, because I was thinking about this earlier, actually. Like who's betting this on Tuesday and Wednesday? It's probably not the people that are showing up and bet once a year. It's probably the people that are following it year round and just getting their early action and that actually know what they're doing. So I think I would think this is sharper money than it's going to be come Saturday.
David, what do you think?
I think that it's going to be I think a lot of the money is going to be made up from public money. We see it more so on Derby Day than really any other day. So I don't put too much weight into the odds. I'm looking right now. I mean, there's a couple that are being bet down that you would think kind of makes sense based on the conversations that have been happening, like Final Gambit, it's down to 18-1. So, I mean, there's a few. I mean, American Promise is down to 12-1. I really hope that that's not the case. That's my big long shot. But yeah, there's a few where it kind of makes sense, but I'm not going to put too much weight on it. I think it'll change a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a number of different people today, and they all kind of line up with that idea that, don't put too much stock into it. But I was more thinking the way that Jackson was, that how many of the casual bettors are betting on Tuesday and Wednesday
It's true.
of Derby week? A lot of people, I feel like it's Saturday, it's their Derby party, and now it's like, oh, well, here's $5, here's $10. That's not to say that the money bet right now is the end all be all one way or the other, right? We can see these things change dramatically over the next few days. So Ryan, you brought up, I like Burnham Square. And I know a lot of people look at that bluegrass and say it was a crummy race. There's 3 across the track. How good could it have been? I have reason to believe that this horse needed the Fountain of Youth or was not at 100%. I'll leave it at that. He came back in the bluegrass and won. Was it impressive? No, not all that impressive. He had a setup. He rallied down the center of the racetrack. I've liked him since January. For a horse like this to win the way that he did at Gulfstream Park, for a trainer like Ian Wilkes, I'm a big believer in when horses do things that their connections don't typically do. That is them telling you that they are that good. You can whether it's go back to 2013 with Orb and Shug, right? Or Shug doesn't have horses that good that early more often than not. Same goes for Honor Code, right? Honor Code ended up proving out that good as a 2-year-old ends up being a good 3-year-old. And I know Orb didn't turn into anything really, but he won the big race when he needed to. I use Gormley as an example for John Sheriff's. John doesn't typically have him good early on. He wins the Sanity Derby. I know it didn't pan out long term, but the point is, right now we're not projecting 12 months from now. I care about what happens in a few days. And I think Ian Wilkes has this horse sitting on tilt. Is it good enough to win? Might not be. But he's 20-1 right now. Even if you could tell me that he'd be 12, like the morning line suggests, do you think he wins this race 8% of the time? They run it 100 times. Does he win 8 or 7? Somewhere there about 7.5? I think he does. I think the pace sets up for him. The price is going to be right. And I go back to that second running line. You've got the PPs up right there.
Yeah.
That was kind of if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. That was when, I mean, you could argue this horse still doesn't know what he's doing. But if you watched that run from Churchill Downs, second out, that was the tip-off that there's something here. He finished like a freight train down the center of the track. And this racetrack, is it the end-all be-all if you have experience over a surface? No. But it's nice to know that you handle it versus some others that don't. He's not going to get tired. I promise you that. If he's not good enough, that's one thing. But the distance won't get him beat. I'm only using him in journalism on top. Journalism is the likeliest winner. We're not breaking any news there. I mean, he ticks all the boxes. There's nothing not to like about him. And I'll disagree with Howard. I think 3-1 is an entirely fair price. I think this horse is that good. And if you wanted to sit here and say he's the only one you want to use, I wouldn't have any real gripe with that. But I think Burnham Square fits. Sovereignty, I think, makes a lot of sense. I think this is kind of, the old idea of Mott with the target, X, Y, and Z. Didn't need to win the Florida Derby, just kind of a stepping stone to get him here. He's been training well all week. Sandman of the short numbers would be the one that I'd probably be slightly against, just because, not the Tappet thing specifically, but being a Tappet, I don't think he's totally screwed on right just yet. Doesn't mean he can't win. He might end up being the best 3-year-old of the lot, but I don't need to find out on Saturday, especially at a short price. So most of my plays just go through 8 and 9 in here.
I like it. We see this race pretty similarly. I think journalism also most likely winner. That's not, as you said, breaking any news. But yeah, Burnham Square, I love the way he's coming into this race. I was there on Bluegrass Day. I just love the way that he ran. And he kind of saw East Avenue and then really kicked it into another gear. Has the run over the Churchill surface. So yeah, I'm pretty much Burnham Square, sovereignty, and journalism for me in my horizontal tickets. But the horse right under Burnham Square, Grande, is a horse that interests me a little bit, just because he did kind of sit that really wide trip last time off of or behind Rodriguez, who kind of went wire to wire in relatively easy fashion. But Grande was the one with the kind of wide trip. Now ships in here. He's going to be a really healthy price, so I might give him a look as well, just because I think the value is there.
I guess my question for Kaylie, being in New York with Grande in the wood, am I being unkind to question the wood and that Rodriguez just controlled on the front end? I mean, beyond Grande, I think a lot of the horses had distance questions and overall quality questions. Somebody had to run second. My tinfoil hat is that they ran Disruptor in the Florida Derby the week prior, and I don't have any knowledge here, why did one go to New York and one stayed in New York in Florida, knowing the Florida race was going to be far tougher than the one in New York. Again, tinfoil hat. I don't have any real knowledge.
Maybe their running styles on the track. I guess maybe it was that this field wasn't as strong. But I happen to think Rodriguez is really nice, and I think that he was able to win there because they took him out of his own backyard, and he didn't have to set it up for someone else, or they didn't have to try to rate him. He was just kind of his race to go and run his race. But I thought Captain Cook was pretty nice going in there. I guess after the fact you can say that he's distance compromised because he didn't get the distance, but I mean, I thought that he was pretty nice going in there. I think it was maybe less so about the field, but I think that the ground that he gave up, he came wide around both turns. That was only his second career start. So third. But I definitely think that, that was a pretty strong race. And I think that he improved a lot there, and he should improve even more with more ground in front of him, especially when we saw that running style. He's one that is pretty interesting to me. I'm probably going to use him in tries and supers, but yeah, he was one of the horses in the Derby that definitely sticks out to me. Don't think that you're going to get 20-1 on him, but yeah, I think that his Wood Memorial, he ran a good race.
I would actually like Rodriguez quite a bit if the pace of this race didn't look like it was going to go sideways.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had enough people ask me today, they're like, do you think there's any chance that the pace doesn't line up the way it looks like it will on paper, and suddenly it's 47 and change instead of 46 and change? I mean, anything is possible, right? But I just have such a hard time seeing it not be a destructive pace early on to the chances of those front runners. And that's a little disappointing because I think Rodriguez, to your point, Kaylee, I feel like if they had ridden him to win in the run against Citizen Bull, he would have won.
Yeah.
I think he's a better horse than Citizen Bull. That's just my opinion. But
I certainly like him better for the distance.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Way better than Citizen Bull. I know that they're both sired by not Rodriguez is sired by Authentic, who's the son of Into Mischief, but same idea. I have more hope on Rodriguez getting the distance. But
they got to
fly. The pace collapsing.
Yeah,
they had to fly in here. I mean, East Avenue was so bad the two times he didn't make the lead that he's going to be quarter horsing it again. I think Onamati from out there is going to have to go, and you have all this speed on the inside. I mean, they have to send out of there to get any kind of position. You got so much speed down there. I mean, there's just no way. I don't see this race not being sub 40, maybe not sub 46, but pretty dang close.
Pretty close.
This also may be like unpopular opinion, but I think, just my opinion, I don't have anything, haven't heard anything, but I think East Avenue is the de facto rabbit for Sovereignty. Godolphin wants to win this race. I know it's different barns. I think East Avenue's going just to ensure that this pace is electric, and Sovereignty has every opportunity.
Yeah, it's going to set up. I mean, as so long as that horse is able to get into a good position before that first turn, I think it's going to set up for Sovereignty. I mean, I couldn't be more excited to bet that horse to win, especially seeing how much he's floating up right now. Wow. But yeah, definitely think it's going to set up for a closer for sure.
Let me ask you this, Kaylee. Is there any concern about Sovereignty just navigating traffic? Because he hasn't really had to do that at this point compared to a horse like Burnham Square, who 3 and 4 back was I out of all the closers, I'm most confident he's going to be able to cut some corners in this race because he's proven he can do it. He can go in between horses, he can go up the rail, whereas a horse like Sovereignty's gone wide every
Burnham
time.
Square.
Yeah, I hope I don't eat my word. I mean, but I don't like Burnham Square whatsoever. I really think Sovereignty has worked out some trips when the pace doesn't set up for him, as well as he was running both those last two at Gulfstream Park. His race at Churchill Downs, when he broke his maiden, he ran really well, and he's going to get pace. So I think that it should set up for him. But I also think they're going to be pretty spread out as well. So hopefully he's able to cut through and save some ground going into the first turn. And I think if he's sitting, anywhere from 10th to 14th from there, I think it could really set up nicely for him. But yeah, I definitely think that he will have to find a good position going into the first turn. But if I'm trusting anyone to figure that out, it's going to be Mott and Alvarado. So
I agree. I think that's an excellent point. Matt, I have a question for you before we let you go. Thank you again for all the time you've taken out of your tremendously busy week here as you're doing Derby coverage nonstop.
I'm clear, man. Whatever you need. We're clear the rest of the way. So
appreciate it. All right. Obviously, there's a horse that we haven't talked about because he's not in the body of the field yet, but he's one of those kind of wisest of wise guy horses. So if there were to be a horse to scratch, what are your thoughts on the number 21 Baeza? Yeah, what are your thoughts? Obviously, Pratt has first preference here, so I don't know if you read it, if anybody would, reads into that in any way, shape, or form. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if you just looked at the two mounts that Flavian would need to choose from, I think it's pretty clear on paper that Baez is the better of the two. Not to throw shade at Neo Equos, but I guess, all right, so there's two different questions, right? Who's the likeliest winner, or you're trying to identify the likelier winner, or you're trying to identify a gamble. The difference between whatever price journalism is going to be and whatever price Baez is likely to be probably doesn't warrant the difference as far as talent is concerned. Journalism is probably 3-1, somewhere thereabouts. I would think from the 20 hole, Baez is probably 8-1, 10-1, somewhere thereabouts. And I don't know that I can reconcile the difference there. I would probably want to put some money into the 21. And if he were to draw into the field, he would certainly. So my thought, going to Howard's point about kind of using two horses to key throughout superfectas, I agree with that. That's usually how I approach the super and the Derby. I'm going to be keying journalism Burnham Square. But if Baeza were to draw in, I would probably rethink the entire thing. And then maybe I end up adding in two horses and keying them through 3 slots. And that would be journalism, Burnham Square. I would include sovereignty because I expect him to run his race. And then Baeza. Now, I recognize we're not talking about big numbers in there, but we ran some graphic on FanDuel TV the other day that even with favorites, it chalked out a few years ago and it still paid $600. Mm-hmm. So as long as you're not going, buck wild in that final slot, it should still turn a little bit of a profit. Now, I guess you could then argue the difference of like, okay, if I put 200 into it and I'm only getting 600 out of it, I should just bet journalism to win. But that's, that's, you want to get into the math part of it, that's entirely a different story. But point being, Baez, if he gets in, yeah, I don't know how you can't consider him a contender in here.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I was curious. Kaylee, I don't think Jackson too. I don't think we've really talked about Baeza at any point in this show or shows previous. So yeah, Kaylee, I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on this runner if he were to draw in?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if you like journalism, then you have to like Baeza because he ran a really good race last time out, second to journalism. That really impressed me. And that was, right off that maiden win as well. So the horse can really only improve. I don't love the far outside, but then again, I mean, it would cause me to rethink the race a little bit if he did draw in, for sure. He would be a main player for me.
I like it. Jackson?
Yeah, I don't really need him. I just thought he got a really, really good trip last time. He had a perfect trip, no excuses, and journalism had a little bit of trouble and still ran down pretty easily in the end. I think a lot of people arguments are like, yeah, he's lightly raced. He's only run 4 times. He's going to improve. Well, who else is still lightly raced and has only run 5 times? It's journalism. I can't journalism take another step forward in that spot. So, I mean, if he's higher than 12-1, like I think I need closer to 20 on Baeza is probably the price range I'm thinking of, and I just don't think that's any chance of that happening.
All right. Hey, that's extremely fair. Matt, parting question that I'd like to get. You mentioned the kind of 2-day pick 6 as part of the many exotic wagers along with the Oaks Derby double. Are there any others that catch your eye, or maybe one of the 15 pick 5s that are going to be offered in the 2 days of racing?
Yeah, I'll throw a number out to you that I've given to everybody, and maybe it'll look stupid on Saturday night, but in the Turf Classic right before the Derby, I'm of the opinion that the Mervyn Muniz down at the fairgrounds, the result was a product of the rail coming down. So they had a temporary rail up for forever and a day. They take it down for the big day, and basically your 2 speeds go 1-2 the entire way. The 2 horses that were closing from the back of the pack were Spirit of St. Louis and Cameo Performance. And if you want to say that Cameo Performance doesn't like Churchill Downs because of that one run in the Audubon last year, I guess I'll just shrug and say I can't really argue. I don't know if it is or isn't the case. But at 15 or 20-1 for Cameo Performance, I absolutely have to find out because he was finishing better than Spirit of St. Louis. I don't think the distance will be a problem. And just given the other names and the connections in that race, I say he's 15, he's 20 to 1 on the morning line, but he should be somewhere in that 15 or 20 range, I would think. And I have to find out. Maybe he's not good enough, but this is a gambling game, and I think he's a likelier winner than that 15 or 20 to 1 would suggest.
I love it. And on this show, to kick us off, we had Andy Serling on here. He basically said kind of not word for word, but pretty much the same thing. The horses out of that Muniz Memorial, the outside really had no shot. So he wants those horses coming back. He named Spirit of St. Louis and then long shot play of Cameo Performance. So those are two people that I highly respect in the handicapping game. So I'm going to have to give those a much closer look and upgrade those, accordingly, because definitely with the way that racetrack was playing that day, it's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I think you have to factor that in everywhere. And it's too early here in the meeting here at Churchill. We've only run, you can count on one hand how many turf races there have been. But as you go throughout the rest of the summer or the spring into the summer, and the rail is out, and then suddenly the rail will come down one day, the inner portions of that turf course are going to be like gold. And anybody that's kind of mired out there on the turf that's been chewed up already, maybe they don't deliver their A performance, but I think those end up being playbacks next time out if they have advantageous situations.
Absolutely. That's excellent insight of what to watch for as we approach the Oaks and the Derby and then the rest of the meets just going forward. Matt, I can't thank you enough for joining us. That was a ton of fun. I always love talking horses with you. Kaylie, Jackson, I'm sure can echo the sentiments, but any questions from either of you before we let Matt go?
We're good.
No,
Thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it. And take care and best of luck this weekend.
Guys, appreciate it. Kaylie, nice meeting you. Good luck this weekend, guys.
Good luck.
Thank you. All right, that was Matt Bernier. Big thanks to him as well. All right, that was I think that was just about the show. But before we go, let's all talk about our picks and what we like, as this is our kind of our main show before we get into the Oaks and the Derby. So, was there anybody? Kaylie, I'll go to you first. Is there anybody in any of the races between the 2 days we haven't talked about that you feel really strongly about that you'd want to mention?
I think, we covered a lot of, the horses I'll be focusing on underneath and the Derby and the Oaks. Like, we basically covered a lot. My two surest bets, the things I'm most excited for, bet Quiet Side to win and a bet Sovereignty to win. Those are the two horses I'm riding with. I'm pretty excited. And also, the Edgewood, really good race on Friday. I'm definitely going to try to play Lush Lips to beat Nitrogen. I think she can turn the tables on her this time around. I really like that filly. So I'll definitely place a bet on Lush Lips on Friday. And then there's also a filly running in the Churchill Distaff Mile, poolside with Slim. That's 8-1 with Joel Rosario aboard for the first time. I always like that filly. She's hard trying and gets a bit of a jockey upgrade as well. So she should be pretty interesting. And Built in the Pate Mile.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. Built is a horse I've kind of heard of a lot of buzz about. Obviously, our buddy Noah Maher, likes that horse and had a connection at the University of Kentucky. But aside from that, the horse has been uber talented, and he seems like the one-turn mile type that's really going to take to that. So, Jackson, any thoughts on any of the races? Anything we haven't covered that you'd like to touch on? And then if you want to give us your, the bets you're most looking forward to as well, go ahead with that.
Yeah, a couple quick hitters. Moving on up in the Distaff Mile. Just seems like she's really, really good right now. Just blowing away fields down at Gulfstream. Has a win over this turf course. Not concerned about the transition over here. Kind of a paceless race too, and she's gonna get that pocket trip for the third straight time. We'll see how good she is. She is moving up the class ladder, but she might be this good. 5-1 for her. The American Turf, this number 6 horse. That's not loading for me right now.
Could I ask you a question real quick on moving on up?
Yes.
Does it bother you that Safi Joseph is absolutely abysmal in stakes races outside of Florida?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I think the horse is just in really good form. If that's the reason I lose. Like, I don't think that's something you have any control over. Like how he's
just curious.
That's the reason why. Yeah. All right. American Turf, Maximum Promise. Ran really well in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. So a wicked pace they set. He was parked 4 or 5 wide, both turns, made an early move from mid-pack into that hot pace and just flattened out a little bit. Hoping he gets a bit of a better trip here, can save some ground, get forwardly placed. He's 20-1. He is a pretty major contender in my opinion. That number is a lot better than it looks. Turf is not a question mark for him. And then Mercante and the Turf Classics. A lot of turf picks for me, I guess. Maybe I should focus on the turf races on Saturday. Mercante looks completely loose in that race. That number last time was really good. The buyer has a chance to be a little too low, actually. All the horses that come back have improved several points. The time form has it about 8 or 9 points higher. So if he runs back that last number, watch out. I mean, he's 10-1 on the morning line. If he runs back that last number, he is the horse to beat.
I like that a lot. Maximum Promise that I think Kaylee and I both made a face like we had to go note that horse down because maybe that was one I at least overlooked at first. And my opinion in that race, I'm definitely going to spread, but I'm beating New Century in there. That's my big play against. I don't like that horse in there. I don't like that he just ran like 2 weeks ago. Is it a he? It is a he. I didn't do it. I didn't do bad. He just ran a few weeks ago overseas. He just shipped in a little late. I just feel like that's a big ask. Maybe he is the best horse on his best day, but regardless of that, I think that this is going to be the time I want to play against him, and I think he is going to be a clear-cut favorite come post time. So that's pretty much my opinion in the American turf. Other than that, I mean, I'm going to play a hard, good cheer to journalism Oaks Derby double. I just feel like that's going to be a nice almost backup of sorts. Good cheer, I think. I mean, again, kind of a lone A for me in the Oaks race, and then I'll back up on, my B and my C tickets with other horses. But in terms of the double, I do want to play those two, and I'll play good cheer into Burnham Square as well, considering he's my top pick, and I don't want to, be in a situation where I lose like that and have to get roasted by Jackson for months on end, because that's no fun for anybody. So
I really do hope that if these two favorites, meaning good cheer and journalism, that if they win, that they put on really big shows. And they beat me. I hope, they put on a really big show. So
right, absolutely. But this show was great. And it also kind of just epitomized what's great about racing is that we all have different opinions. We all have different reasons why we like and dislike horses, but that's all part of the game, and the races get to be run in the next few days. So to all, over 1,200 people that are watching us, thank you guys for tuning in. Kaylee and Jackson, us three, along with Matthew DeSantis, will be back on Friday morning as we kick off the 24-hour live stream for Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance as a fundraiser. That's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to be covering all the races, whether that's, Churchill Downs throughout the day, or whether it's Jackson and myself doing Australia at night. We have some guests joining that are over in Europe that are going to join us to talk Newmarket because they have the 2,000 guineas and some other races going on. So they have a big day over there. So they're going to join us. There's some expert analysts. We have Davey Lane that'll join us. Emmett Kennedy. You can look them up if you'd like. They're very good at what they do. So they're going to join. They're going to talk European racing with us, which is good because I don't know about you, Jackson. I don't know a whole lot about the horses that run over there and what to expect. I just know Aidan O'Brien normally has a pretty good string of runners in those races. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, Saturday at noon, as soon as we wrap up the 24-hour live stream, Jackson and I are just going to hop right into the Saturday show. Kaylee, obviously, if you don't have anything going on Derby Day, you're welcome to hop on with us. Yep. Nice. Matthew is going to be on with us too. And it's just going to be, by the time the Derby is run, you'll be sick of seeing the four of us on a screen. I don't have any doubt about that. I think someone is, of the four of us, we're 6-5 to have at least one of us lose our voice. So hopefully it's not me, but thank you everybody for watching this 3-hour plus long show. That was exceptional is today Wednesday? I don't even know anymore. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week. Hit some winners this weekend, and we'll see you on Friday.